Oh. Starting recording. We're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the C-Listers podcast. My name is Mark Rollins, your usual host. Joining me, friend of the show, Hot Stove co-host Zach Nunez.
What's up? This episode's also going to be on the Hot Stove YouTube channel, so
yes,
you know who we are. Mother effers.
I'm. You can swear.
Mother F.
Hack. Zach and I have done a few episodes of this show before. We did the clown episode, which was a lot of fun. We did Scarton Scorsese movies. Martin Scorsese movies. We ranked them, and we've got another list for you tonight, folks. And it's a doozy. Let me tell you, we're going to be ranking every single comic book movie ever made. Basically, no, it's actually going to be our top 25s, and we also have honorable mentions. I'm going to preface this right now for some people who have listened to the show before. I am not going based off of my rating scale because it pissed me off earlier. So I am going to do this based on a number of factors like rewatchability, just general enjoyment. It can be, which means it can be a bad movie. Like, I am a big fan of the 1998 Godzilla movie, even though it's terrible. But I enjoy watching that movie a lot. So this will not be an objective list from me. Some of these movies aren't very good, but I enjoy them. So
all of the movies on my list I would reckon are good.
No, there's a couple on mine that I concede are not very good.
Okay.
And shall we get right into our honorable mentions?
Yeah. Well, you want to do some plugs first, like some
well, yeah. I mean,
plugs or anything like that.
Yeah, just as usual, follow me on Twitter, MPRollins99. Follow at Hot Stove Pod on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Like, comment, and subscribe down below. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel because I am bringing it back. It's been a long while, and I will, in a different episode, get into why it's been so long. But if you had to guess, you can probably figure out why I stopped my movie podcast when no movies were coming out for a very long time.
Also, you're talking C-Listers is back on YouTube too, on this very platform?
Yes. We will be back on YouTube for the time being until I decide to cough up the $35 to buy the domain for the website back. So we're going back on YouTube.
All the effers.
Yeah. So subscribe, like, comment, all that jazz. As our guest, how about you? List off our honorable mention. Oh, and do you want to plug your Twitter? I can't think of the handle right off the top of my head.
Zach1999 on Twitter. But more importantly, Hot Stove Pod.
Yes, at Hot Stove Pod, please.
If you're watching this on the Hot Stove channel, go follow Mark. Go follow the C-Listers.
Yeah, I'll put the cross promotion. This is synergy right here.
Like I did last time. Last time we did one of these crossover episodes, I had an ending card at the end with the channel for the C-Listers on it. So look out for that. You'll be able to click on it at the end of the video and just go to the channel. So
I'll do the same.
That shit should be up there. Anywho, I think we could at least talk about first where our minds were going into the list a little bit. Because my list basically broke. I know you already did a little bit with mine. Basically broke down into two different kinds of good comic book movies. I say some of the movies on my list are good, I think, because of how faithful they are to the source material. Mm-hmm. And some of them I think are good. It's really three categories. It's like how faithful you are to the source material, how much you entertain me on just like a base stupid popcorn level, and then like third, I have a good amount of movies on this list that offer a complete dissection of the comic book genre, something that offers a different take on a comic book story. You know, a comic book movie that's in a different genre than you would normally expect a comic book movie, quote unquote, to be in. Those are kind of like three ways that I thought about the list.
Yeah, those basically are categories that all of the movies on my list fall into as well. Because like I said, there are some objectively not very good movies on my list, but they're there just for the entertainment value. So why don't you give me your honorable mentions to start off?
So I have 5 honorable mentions. I know you have like 15 or something like that.
No, I have 8.
So I'll actually make it 6 because I wanted to bring up one movie that I haven't actually seen, but I wanted to put it on my honorable mentions list, and that was Wes Craven's Swamp Thing.
Yes. Oh,
I haven't seen the movie. I think it was 1984. The movie came out.
I think it was 82.
It was right before he directed Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
I just like to point out, haven't seen it. I would like to see it.
It's not very good.
Alan Moore is my favorite comic writer. Generally speaking, you'll see a couple of his adaptations on here, whether Watchmen, V for Vendetta, The Killing Joke is one of my favorite Batman stories.
Yes.
Saga of the Swamp Thing. You guys get the gist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Legendary guy. It's not like I'm reading off some underground Joe Schmo from Wyoming, right?
It's Alan Moore.
People know who Alan Moore is. So I just wanted to shout out. Again, haven't seen the movie. I've heard the movie's bad, but that's beside the point.
It's fun. I did consider mentioning it. It is fun.
How many good movies does Wes Craven actually have?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Because I've seen Scream as well. But
Scream.
I've seen what was it? The Last House on the Left. Did he direct that?
I think so.
1970 whatever. I don't remember. Yes, The Last House on the Left. That movie was bad.
Yes, it's very bad.
He directed the original Hills Have Eyes. That's a movie.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either.
The remake's not bad though.
I haven't seen the remake. I've only seen the original.
Anyways, who cares, right? That's beside the point, right?
Wes Craven, really not all that great of a director, if we're being honest.
But he did direct 2 of the couple handfuls of best horror movies ever made. So
Scream is my favorite horror movie. So
there you go. Boom. Right. Anyways, that's for another episode, right?
Yes, it is.
We'll talk about Wes Craven in another episode. Who knows? We're eventually gonna run out of genres. Like we're gonna have to get.
Oh, buddy, I'm going to genre blend to your heart's content. Like
our favorite 1940s crime thriller starring Humphrey Bogart. That's gonna be like our next list.
Sure, I could do that.
I couldn't. We could try.
Are we counting Casablanca as a crime thriller? It sort of is. Not really, but yeah.
I have 5 honorable mentions. 5 actual honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
Son of a bitch! I forgot about Hellboy.
A bunch of the movies I have on my list are actually sequels.
Me too.
In a few different series, Hellboy included, and X-Men, which we'll talk about. I assume. I think they're very similar in the fact that like the first movie is good. Like the first Hellboy movie is good. The first X-Men movie is good. Yeah. But you can tell that it was a property that the studios, for whatever reason, didn't have much faith in. I mean, the first X-Men movie came out in 2000, so it was before superhero movies outside of Batman and Superman were like cool things to do, right?
Yeah, it was Batman, Superman, and Blade were the ones really that came out before X-Men.
Blade was an anomaly at that point. Blade was a passion project for Wesley Snipes. Like it wasn't like people weren't like clamoring for a Blade movie or anything.
No.
So it's clear to me that with X2, which is another honorable mention of my list, so I'll kind of rub these together. X2 and Hellboy 2 are both movies where I think the directors, Guillermo del Toro and Bryan Singer, noted bad human, Bryan Singer.
Very much so.
Were kind of like given the budget to finally do what they wanted to do with their characters. And I think both respectively are the best movies of their franchise. I love Ron Perlman as Hellboy. So I'll preface this by saying there are other X-Men movies higher up on my list. What I meant.
Okay, I was gonna say like I don't think that's a hot
X-Men movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Hellboy 2 being the best is a hot take at all. I think saying X2 is the best X-Men movie is a hot take that I do not necessarily 100% disagree with, but
so I think X-Men is pretty well defined as who's directing the movies.
Yes.
Didn't Bryan Singer come back and direct like First Class or something like that?
Yeah, he did. Was it First Class or Days of Future Past? Because one of them was Matthew Vaughn and the other one was Bryan Singer.
First Class was Matthew Vaughn.
Okay. So I believe Bryan Singer did Days of Future Past as well.
Yes. So I think X-Men to me is divided in terms of the movies. First Class to me started a new era of X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
So when I mentioned the franchise, I meant X-Men to like X-Men Origins Wolverine, like the first four X-Men movies, which are like two and a half.
And the Wolverine.
And the Wolverine. The Wolverine came out after First Class, though.
Oh, yeah, it did, didn't it?
Wolverine was 2013. First Class was 2011.
I've never seen the Wolverine all the way through.
It's good.
I've heard. I enjoyed the parts I saw of it. I just never finished it.
It gets kind of dumb at the end, but I really like what James Mangold did with it, and and obviously we'll talk about James Mangold's other Wolverine-related movie.
Oh yes, we will. Oh yes, we will.
But of the first four X-Men movies, I think X2 is the best one. I don't know how hot of a take that is, but
that isn't a hot take.
That was my point. Regardless, another honorable mention for me is The Mask, the Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah.
Based on comic, I don't really think The Mask is all that great. It's kind of inconsistent.
It's very fun.
Shit ton of fun.
Yeah.
I wanted to just mention it because I don't think many people know it was based on a comic book. So, The Mask, right? It's published by Dark Horse Comics back in like 1991, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my next one is an MCU entry. It's my one MCU honorable mention. The MCU showed up, I think, less than I expected.
Not for me.
In my total, what'd you say?
I said not for me. There's a number of them.
Less than I expected in my total list. But my one MCU honorable mention is Thor Ragnarok. I've been noted in saying that I think the first two Thor movies are like two of the three worst MCU films.
Mm-hmm.
I find them boring as tar.
They are.
But I think a lot of superhero movies kind of rely on their director, which is a dumb thing to say. Like any movie kind of relies on its director. But what I mean by that,
you need to have a certain style to direct a superhero movie well.
I think part of it also is us having grown up in the era where superhero movies are such like a ubiquitous thing. Like what really gets me excited about superhero movies before or now, and what I think I've told you about this before, my feelings on the MCU going forward, is like I want to see something different. And Taika Waititi brought something different to Thor. Like Thor was boring as shit. Then they did Thor Ragnarok. It's kind of like a slapstick comedy. Hulk's in it. They're doing the thing. It's very Technicolor, which I love about it.
I love the look of that movie.
A pretty looking movie. I think it's one of the best looking movies in the MCU. I think it's one of the things I like about it the most, and we'll talk about it with the other MCU movies that I have on here, is the personality that's in it. That's what I mean by the director. Yeah. Like, I think what makes a good superhero movie to me is the director's personality showing through the film. And we'll talk about that. I think that shows up. That might be a bigger running theme.
Yeah, it will be.
As we go forward, at least with some of the entries on there, absolutely. And then my last entry is my honorable mention is Spider-Man, the 2002 one, Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film. There's not really much to say about it. It's really good. What's the new Spider-Man movie called? No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yes.
No Way Home. The trailer came out for that not too long ago.
That's what inspired me to do this episode, is because I am so goddamn hyped for Spider-Man No Way Home. As listeners of this podcast will know, I am a massive Spider-Man fan, and that will certainly show in the content of this list.
Top two movies on this list are going to be. I think I already kind of know what they are.
Yeah,
Well, I think part of it is that I know your rating system, which you're not going off of. So, who knows, right? But I don't know. I like 2002 Spider-Man a lot. That's about it. It's a good movie. People know it's a good movie. Like, there's not much I can say about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Yeah.
My honorable mentions, I'm now up to 10 because I moved around my list already. because I completely forgot about the X-Men movies. I completely forgot they existed outside of the one James Mangold one. I was just thinking, I was like, man, what a great standalone Wolverine movie that was. And obviously, there were about 9 movies that built up to that one. So I'm just going to run through these pretty quick because there's 10 of them. Dark Knight Rises, it is good. It's not as good as the other one. But I do enjoy The Dark Knight Rises a lot. Same with Batman Begins. I just really like that entire trilogy. Old Boy is based on a comic, and it was part of my favorite action movies. I had to mention it here. It was more than an honorable mention on the list I made of rated ones. It was actually number 14 on that. But it's an honorable mention for me here. The first Deadpool, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. If you haven't seen that, it's very good.
Yep.
I like that one a lot. 2012 Avengers.
Okay.
Kick-Ass, which was one I completely forgot about. Kick-Ass rules.
This is gonna be a lot of fun because
all of these are on your actual list. Yeah. Dread, which I know is also going to be on your actual list, and X-Men First Class. All of those are really good movies. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that they aren't. It's just like I said, like X-Men First Class, I think is a great X-Men movie, but I don't find myself going back and rewatching that one or getting as much enjoyment out of it as I do. It's going to be on my list X2. Like, so that's sort of why they're down there instead of in the actual list. Want to hit me with your number 25?
Yeah. By the way, I just like to say Old Boy is the one that I didn't make it. I was kind of quibbling with whether or not I put it on there. Didn't end up making the list. So I like the movie. We talked about it. If you want to hear about our opinions on Old Boy, watch our action movies episode. We did talk there.
And once again, I'm not talking about Josh Brolin.
No,
love you, Josh Brolin.
Still bad.
Yes.
Still bad movie. We're talking about the Korean one, right? This Korean?
Yes. Okay. Hong Kong?
Maybe.
Korean? That one.
Look that
up. The good one.
We're choosing not to. We're looking at the good one. Well, it came out in like 2003. That one.
Yes. Yeah, hit me with your number 25.
My number 25 is a movie that I know is probably a lot higher on your list. We talked about this a bunch. Is Kingsman: The Secret Service.
It is much higher on my list.
I completely forgot it was a comic book movie until you mentioned it. You said it was like the one movie on here that was like not a superhero movie, or like one of a couple, probably.
Yeah, it's one of a couple now. Originally, it was the only one.
I'd say probably over half my list is movies that aren't really superhero movies. Kingsman is awesome. Like, I think we talk again. Some of these movies we talked about in our action episode. You want more thoughts on it? Go see that one. But I really like Matthew Vaughn as a director. We'll talk about. I mean, we're talking about him now. We already mentioned Kick-Ass, which is going to be much higher on my list. X-Men First Class. This guy, I think what I really like about Matthew Vaughn's directing style when it comes to action is just how in your face all of it is.
Yes.
Like, Matthew Vaughn isn't necessarily a director who's going to show like a bunch of wide shots with a lot of action. It's a lot of close-ups in particular, but it's also not like Paul Greengrass levels of like shaky cam and using handheld.
It's very smooth.
It's very smooth. And like I said, it's super stylized. It's really in your face. I mean, for Christ's sake, the end of Kingsman, everyone's heads blow up and confetti comes out. Like,
it's incredible.
That's like that's the church scene.
Yeah.
And we already talked about it in the episode we did 2 weeks ago. The church scene in Kingsman is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I love the movie. You know? All right. Anyways, what's your 25?
This is the first part where people are going to get mad at me. It's Spider-Man 3.
You did say people are going to hate this list. I don't hate it because I don't hate Spider-Man 3 as a movie.
Spider-Man 3 is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
I actually don't think Spider-Man 3 is all that bad.
I don't think it's good. But
I had to give it a grade, a C.
Yeah, it's like
actually on whole very average.
It's so goddamn funny. Peter punches Mary Jane in the face. He walks down the street, snapping his fingers, humping the air to jazz music that no one else can hear.
Yes. See, this is the problem. I feel terrible for Sam Raimi because there's good ideas in that movie.
There are.
The Sandman is a good character.
And Venom was never supposed to be in that movie. That was another Avi Arad, longtime Spider-Man ruiner. That was his thing, that he wanted Venom in there. So
if you get rid of the whole Venom thing, I think it would have given Sam Raimi the opportunity to make an actual like good movie.
I agree.
I don't love the whole Hobgoblin thing, but
New Goblin.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's not the Hobgoblin.
If you devoted, like, I think if like I said, if the symbiote, it's Eddie Brock's Venom in that movie, right? As well.
Yes.
Okay. So
Topher Grace is Eddie Brock.
Yeah. So if you remove that whole thing from the movie, I think there would have been enough time to like make the New Goblin also feel not rushed. Because like that's another part of the movie that feels kind of just like thrown in there. Like, we need to connect Willem Dafoe to the movie somehow. Here's James Franco as the New Goblin for some reason. Like,
also, you already mentioned, I'm gonna get into Spider-Man 1. Willem Dafoe like really hams it up in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
James Franco in Spider-Man 3. The pie eating scene where he's eating with Peter, the waitress comes up, "How's your pie?" So good.
Well, and I think Sam Raimi on purpose made his Spider-Man movies really hammy. Like I think
for sure. I
think he did I think there was a concerned effort to make them like very comic booky.
Yeah.
In the sense that like they're cheesy, they're kind of stupid, like not even as a bad thing. Obviously. But like it just kind of got out of hand with Spider-Man 3, basically.
Yeah. But it's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I love Spider-Man 3. And in terms of a comedy, if Spider-Man 3 was just a straight up comedy, it would be 100 out of 100 for me. Like, it's so funny. But let's go on to your number. Yeah, let's go on to your number 24.
My number 24 is the first Zack Snyder entry in my list, and the second mention of Alan Moore in this episode. And that's Watchmen. I have a really conflicted relationship with this movie, honestly, because Watchmen is my favorite graphic novel of all time. It's one of my favorite pieces of literature that I've ever read. I've mentioned it before that I did a class last year, a senior seminar for political science, where we a lot of that semester was spent doing a very deep dive on Watchmen, and because the capstone was about superheroes in American political culture.
Yeah.
So Watchmen is a story that resonates with me quite a bit. And what I like about Zack Snyder's direction, and I like about it in a lot of his movies, is he kind of knows. I think Zack Snyder has a really nuanced way of knowing when his style works and when it doesn't. We'll talk about 300, or at least I'll talk about 300.
Yes, you will.
And that's a movie where like all of the Zack Snyderisms come out, right? Like if that weren't based on a Frank Miller graphic novel, like that movie would just be like Sucker Punch with Greek dudes. Yeah, basically, right? Watchmen, I think, is a movie where Zack Snyder realized that in order to do a story that dense justice, his style had to step aside.
Yeah,
basically. And I think his visual style remains, which Zack Snyder has always been very good at making movies look like the source material.
Oh, yeah.
And I think visually Watchmen looks like the book. I don't think it's perfect. I really don't. Otherwise, it'd be a lot higher on this list. But what I think Watchmen nails, and what I mentioned is one of my qualifiers, is its coherence with the source material. I think what sets Watchmen up as at least a very good movie to me is the editing and the soundtrack. Because in particular, I think one of the most interesting things about Watchmen as a text is the way that Alan Moore played with the conventions of a typical comic book. The way the panels look, the way the panels interact with one another, it's atypical, telling an atypical story. But I think the way the film is edited kind of lends itself to that. I just wish that some of the performances were better. Some of the writing could have been better in spots, even though they did take a lot of the dialogue from the book itself. I just think the problem with the movie is that it's an impossible task to, even in a movie that's, I think, over 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's about 240, I think. It's a long movie.
Give me 1 second. In a movie that is 2 hours and 43 minutes long.
Yeah.
I think that's the director's cut. It's still hard to fit a story like Watchmen.
Absolutely.
I think
it was considered unadaptable.
Exactly. So I respect the balls, and I think technically it's a perfect adaptation of the graphic novel, and that's why it's on this list. But yeah, I like the movie a lot. It's just, like I said, I have a difficult relationship with it.
I like the movie a lot as well. Number 24 for me. Here we go again, people. It's Iron Man 3.
What is wrong with you?
I like Iron Man 3. I will defend Iron Man 3. The twist in Iron Man 3 is good.
I don't not like Iron Man 3, and that's another one where I think the director kind of comes into play. Like, I really question the choice to have Shane Black direct a Marvel movie.
I enjoy it.
I love Shane Black's writing. I really like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is one of my
yes.
It's a really good movie. Obviously, he was in Predator.
Yeah.
And I believe he co-wrote that movie, right?
He did. I believe so, yes.
I just think it was a strange fit for the MCU.
It's like Iron Man 3.
It's another movie. I'll say this. This was my last thing about it before I let you talk. I apologize for interjecting.
It's fine.
I'll say this. I respect the balls of Shane Black to make that kind of... Shane Black directed The Nice Guys, did he not?
Yes. I think.
Yeah, The Nice Guys is awesome. I love
that movie rules. If you haven't seen Nice Guys, go watch The Nice Guys. Dude, Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe have some of the best. Yeah, they have some of the best comedic chemistry I've ever seen on screen, and it's Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. It shouldn't work at all, but it works so well.
It was unbelievable. So I respect the balls, and I think your personal enjoyment of Iron Man 3 is going to come down to two things: the kid and the Mandarin. I kept trying to not say Mandalorian, and it wasn't coming out. And the Mandarin twist. I don't love the kid. Like I said, I respect the Mandarin twist. I think the movie's okay. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people do. It's not the worst Iron Man movie.
No, it's not.
Twist, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. All right. First of all, kind of like the kid. I think he's charming. I think he's a very solid kid actor, and I like the way the character's written. Second of all, I think the Mandarin twist is hilarious, and people should stop getting all up in arms about a comic book character that no one cared about until 2008.
I agree.
Until 2008, no one gave a shit about Iron Man. Then all of a sudden, he's everyone's favorite comic book character, and they're like, oh, you can't mess up the main villain of Iron Man. Guess what? They're retconning it. The real one's in Shang-Chi. So shut up. You're going to get your real Mandarin. But guess what? He's not going to be an Iron Man's villain, so screw you. But yeah, I think the Mandarin twist is very funny. I also really like Guy Pearce in things. I think Guy Pearce is a really good actor, so it's nice to see him in a Marvel movie. Is the I am the Mandarin thing really stupid? Yes, it is, but it's a movie written by Shane Black. So it's just one of those things where I watch Iron Man 3 and I really enjoy it because I take it for what it is. It's a Shane Black Iron Man movie, which is a lot of fun and actually does a pretty damn good job on its own of dealing with Tony's PTSD, which it does not get nearly enough credit for. It takes a comedic twist at times, but for the most part, it does a really good job of handling that, which sadly gets abandoned in Age of Ultron and Civil War.
Yeah, but then it comes back.
But then it comes back.
Yeah.
But I think it does a good job at that, and there's enough levity for it to be an enjoyable movie. So I'm tired of hearing people shit talk Iron Man 3. It's a really fun movie.
All right, so like eventually, are you gonna have like a good movie on this list, or
Yes. The rest of I'm not going to say the rest of them. For the most part, the rest of them are good movies.
I'm not gonna say the rest of them are good.
There's a couple more that people aren't gonna. One more that people aren't gonna like. But the rest of them are pretty good. So
one of mine, I mean, the rest of the movies on my list I consider to be legitimately good. One of them has been memed to shit. So I mean, yeah, it's a thing. But anyways, number 23 for me is The Dark Knight Rises. We already talked about it. I love Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I do as well. Part of it comes down to the fact that Bane as a character is one I really adore in both the comics and in Tom Hardy's portrayal of him. The Dark Knight Returns is one of my personal favorite Batman stories as well. I think we've talked about this before.
We have, because I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, and that's The Dark Knight Returns is Frank Miller. Yes.
Yes, it's Frank Miller. My biggest thing is the art style. Like, I like Frank Miller, but I don't like when he draws, and it's...
Shocker. Two of Zach's favorite Batman stories being written by Alan Moore and Frank Miller. Who'd have guessed, right? And not that The Dark Knight Rises is a Dark Knight Returns. It's very much so not.
No.
I'm still waiting for that live action movie that'll never come of like 50-year-old Batman. He comes back and
I'll get to a live action adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. I
don't know. So I think there's a lot of flaws with the movie. It's one of those movies that I kind of just like look past the flaws of, to be honest with you. I think like the pit thing is kind of stupid. Like how Batman gets out of the pit, really. Like I think Bane's pit is cool, but like obviously the massive plot holes that have been talked about to death over the last decade now that the movie's been out. I understand that they're there. I just kind of look past it because I think Christopher Nolan, I still think in the movie, Christopher Nolan's vision for The Dark Knight is my favorite adaptation of Batman ever in any sort of medium. And I think Christian Bale is the perfect Batman.
Fair enough.
Although, mad props to Kevin Conroy. I'd like to point that out. The voice actor for the majority of the Batman animated stuff. Kevin Conroy is excellent.
Yes, he's if we're including animated Batmans, he is my favorite Batman.
Well, because you have the interplay between him and Mark Hamill as the Joker. It's just
it's perfect.
It's unbelievable. It's great.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we're not going to be including. I just want to preface this now. Like Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. We're not going to be including those. They're not like full feature length movies, really. Yeah. Like
if Mask of the Phantasm was feature length, which I will look it up right now because I don't actually remember.
I think it's only like an hour and 10 minutes.
That's around feature length. I think feature length technically is 75 minutes.
Oh, really? I thought it was longer than that.
And Batman Mask of the Phantasm is 76 minutes.
Okay, so Mask of the Phantasm, throw that in my honorable mention since it is feature length. That movie's awesome.
Yeah, no, I like The Dark Knight Rises a lot. It's like I said, it's similar to what you talked about with Iron Man 3. I think it's more of an apt comparison than Spider-Man 3. I think Dark Knight Rises is kind of one of those movies where I kind of just like I look past the flaws, I accept them for what they are, and I still really enjoy the movie beside it. So
yeah, fair enough. Number 23 for me is Deadpool 2. I think Deadpool 2 is the superior Deadpool movie. I think it's funnier than the first one. I like the first one. It was in my honorable mentions. I like the first one a lot. I think it's funnier than the first one. I think Josh Brolin as Cable is so cool. Like, if someone said to me that their favorite comic book Josh Brolin character was Cable, I'd be like, okay. Like, I think he's the perfect guy to play Cable.
And I would yell at them for not talking about Oldboy, my favorite Josh Brolin comic book character.
Or Jonah Hex. People forget about Jonah Hex.
He was in Jonah Hex.
He was Jonah Hex.
That movie sucked.
That movie's terrible. But Was he in Cowboys and Aliens? No, he wasn't.
No, Daniel Craig
and Harrison Ford.
And Harrison Ford. That movie was also not good.
No, but yeah, I think it's funnier. I think it's more well paced. I like the action better in Deadpool 2. I think like Deadpool 2 just takes what Deadpool 1 did and just made it better. So it's going to go on my list. I've only rewatched it once. So I saw it once in theaters and I've only rewatched it once, but like Deadpool, the first one, I don't think is super rewatchable. I think it's rewatchable enough, but when you get like the fourth time, it's just like, all right, like I need to take a little break from this movie. I think Deadpool 2, when I watched it the second time, I didn't lose any enjoyment. So yeah, that's why it's there. I just said a lot of really good things about a movie that's number 23 on my list. But yeah,
it's implied that we enjoy all of these movies. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about them.
Yes.
I mean, we originally started with the idea of doing top 10, and that quickly snowballed to the top 25 with honorable mentions. So like,
yeah,
it would have been really difficult to do something like that.
What's your number 22?
Number 22 is a movie we've already talked about a little bit. It's Dredd. Dredd's another
I expected it to be higher for you.
Yeah, I wrestled with it. With where it's at. I could see it moving up a few spots if I redid it, but we're already talking about it. So, Dredd is 22. I fucking love that movie. Like,
yeah, again, Dredd's awesome.
I wish it was on a streaming service so I could watch it because I don't own it. I haven't seen it in so long, and like, it's a movie that's just like, it's so fucking cool. Like, like the original one was with Stallone is bad, and it's like one of those like, haha, bad movie, bad, kind of things. But like, it was directed by Pete Travis. What was that? Has he directed anything else? Sorry, I'm looking at his IMDb page right. He directed Vantage Point. Remember that movie?
Vaguely.
Who the hell was in that movie? Was it Forrest Whitaker? No, it wasn't. It was yeah, it was. It was Forrest Whitaker and Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid, that's right.
It was a movie about like an assassination attempt on Dennis Quaid as the president, and it was told from the perspective of Forrest Whitaker, who was a photographer for some reason. That movie wasn't very good. I actually don't know. I've never seen it. I've only seen trailers of it. It didn't look good. Never watched. But that guy bounced back, directed Dredd. And again, it's one of those things like, I think one of the things I like about Dredd the most is that it took like something that was very popular in action movies at the time, which was like the whole slow motion thing. And it gave it a purpose in the movie, the drug that they take, which the name is escaping me right now. But yeah, I don't know. I really want to watch it again. Lena Headey is also really good as the villain in that movie.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, that movie's badass. Karl Urban. God, I wish there was a sequel to that movie.
And
Dredd
I wish it made money, dude. It made no money. But yeah, Dredd's sick. That's I have to rewatch it as well. I haven't watched Dredd in a long time. Number 22 for me is Captain America: Civil War. Spider-Man's in it. Ant-Man gets big. The airport scene is fucking sick. The Russo brothers directed it. Those are basically the only things I need to say. Yeah, are there some issues with Civil War? Sure. I've heard people recently say, did you know Civil War was actually bad? No, it wasn't. Shut up.
Civil War, agree with that take. The movie's not bad.
No, Civil War, I legitimately think was very good.
Yeah.
I really like the Tony versus Winter Soldier dynamic. I think that's like pretty interesting that it was actually Bucky that killed Stark's parents and Cap knew about it the entire time. Like, that elevated the end of that movie. I think Zemo was a really cool character as well.
Yeah. I think it adds a level of depth to the characters that you kind of need after this length of time. Like, at that point, we're 8 years into the MCU, 9 years into the MCU. Like, I understand like these are characters that we know well because they've had their own movies, but like at some point it was just bound to become like a bunch of characters on screen together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think adding something like that, and especially like the intrigue aspect of like Cap knowing about it, like it adds a flaw to a character that's supposed to be like, you know, the flawless, truth-telling American hero, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
No, but I completely agree. And as Zemo, like, people think he was like a MacGuffin for the movie and like sort of pointless, which did he really do anything? No, not all that much. Well, watch Captain America or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because he's the best character in that show.
I haven't watched it. Is he the one that like he's like the villain of the show, Zemo?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. He's I know which character you're referring to.
Yeah, he's like partially the villain, partially not. But he's the best character in the show. And Daniel Bruhl is awesome. Love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think with some of these movies, it's just going to boil down to like movie good.
Yeah, and Civil War movie good.
You know, like like my number 21 is Black Panther. What the hell do you want me to say about Black Panther?
Yeah, you don't have to.
It's a movie that's pretty well ingrained into American cinematic culture at this point. Like, I think Black Panther partially makes its way onto this list, not just because I love the movie, and I really do. I think I've been on record many times on this show saying that it's one of my favorite Marvel movies, and it is, and that's why it's on the list. But also, like, what the hell do you want me to say about it? Like, it's going to go down as arguably the most iconic movie of the MCU, if not one of the short list of the few. You know, like, we want me to sit here and say Chadwick Boseman good, sad he dead now.
Yeah. You won't see Black Panther on my list
because you're a poser. That's why.
I just didn't love the movie. I thought, like, I understand why people love it, and I'll never like try to argue someone on that fact. It's just I didn't love the fact that Killmonger had like 3 motivations and they couldn't just pick one. I thought they overcomplicated him a little too much. I think the final battle between Black Panther and Killmonger looks like it was made in 2006. And so like there's just, and I think Claw was a really cool villain that they could have kept in the MCU longer and that they killed off for no reason. So like there's enough things that I don't like about that movie for it to not make it onto my list. But I understand why people love it, and it's just like I've tried to argue that fact with people and no one ever listened to me. So I've given up.
Hey, this Danish fella just won a set against Djokovic.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Good for the Dane. Good for him.
Good for him. I'm kind of hoping he wins this match just for like the chaos of it.
That would be chaotic as hell.
Yeah.
My number 21 is you mentioned X2. X2 rules. Like, it's just Nightcrawler. The opening scene with Nightcrawler in the White House is so goddamn cool. And you've got like the that is the one I'm sort of mixing. That's the No More Mutants one, right? Like where they're trying to get rid of the mutants.
Oh god, I mean that's shown up like 6 times.
Yeah,
the X-Men movies. So maybe I can't remember.
Yes, it is.
Wasn't that also the plot of X-Men Apocalypse? But
doing and I didn't mean to say No More Mutant. No More Mutants is House of M, the mutant cure. But yeah, X2 is just really cool. I rewatched it like a couple months ago and it held up. And for some reason now I'm drawing a blank on which X-Men movie is which. I know it's not the first. I'm just.
And you know it's not the one with Butterbean, the fat guy. That was actually
Juggernaut.
No.
The Blob
match. Yeah, the Slob.
Yeah.
Did Butterbean play him? Wasn't that the whole bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I knew I wasn't going crazy.
Now I gotta.
By the way, that movie is a colossal train wreck.
Oh yeah, that movie stinks. Yes, it's the one I'm thinking of. Okay. Yeah, where Stryker kidnaps Professor X and he tries to use Cerebro to like kill all the mutants. Stryker played by Brian Cox, who Brian Cox is awesome in everything he's in. Just watch X2. It's a good movie. That's another one I don't have a ton to say on. So
Butterbean was not in X-Men Origins Wolverine. I'm looking at it now.
who played?
I don't know. The Blob? I have no idea.
Hold on.
I was just looking it up, and I'll talk about my number 20 movie because it's a movie.
Yeah.
Number 20 movie is the second Zack Snyder entry, and the 90th mention of Frank Miller on this episode, and that's 300. So we talk about more of the movie and its impact on action films in our action episode. So go check that out. But in terms of a comic book movie, I think, again, the movie's certainly not perfect. Trust me, I know that 300 is kind of just like a testosterone fest and really nothing else. But where I think it excels as a comic book movie is what I kind of mentioned when I was talking about Watchmen, which is that Zack Snyder knows when his style works and when it doesn't. In this instance, his style worked to a T because what he was able to do for 300 was to basically make the pages of Frank Miller's graphic novel come to life. Like that was, if you'd opened the book and it played a video instead of showing you pages, it would be Zack Snyder's 300.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredibly influential on action films in the late 2000s and early 2010s. I've talked about it ad nauseum. 300 is my number 20 comic book movie.
Not Brooklyn Nets superstar Kevin Durant. It was Kevin Durand who played the Blob in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Should have just hired Butterbean. What the hell?
My number 20 is Thor Ragnarok. You mentioned it. Taika Waititi is a very good director. This movie is hilarious. I love Thor Ragnarok. I saw it in theaters very hesitantly because I was like, oh man, it's a Thor movie. The first two stunk. I was with the normal co-host of this podcast, Mara. We saw it in theaters together and we had a blast. And it was just the two of us in a very small theater at the mall. And because we saw it like 2 weeks after it came out. And it was a super fun, funny, really well written and well directed movie. And Cate Blanchett is good in everything she's in. So there's that. And she was great as Hela. If you just want to get into your number 19, I don't have much else to say about Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, and it's another movie you don't love, so I'll get into it quickly. It's V for Vendetta, our next Alan Moore entry into this list.
I'm sorry, people are gonna like these are like very like basic like comic book boy takes. Like I like Frank Miller, I like Alan Moore. Yeah, because they're good.
Yeah,
they're good at what they do. So shut up and let a man enjoy his Frank Miller and Alan Moore.
What do you want me to do? I don't know what to tell you.
They're good at what they do. Alan Moore is phenomenal. Like
I like that dark shit. You know, that's what it is. So V for Vendetta is another movie I have a complicated relationship to say with a little bit, partially because of what the character of V has become in terms of a symbol used for like white supremacist conspiracy theories over the last decade or so. And I think what's interesting about it, and where you can clearly tell that the Wachowskis wrote the movie, is that it toes similar philosophical lines that The Matrix does in terms of its discussion of dystopia. But I think where it excels is that it's much more obviously of a political satire, which again, written by Alan Moore, you kind of know the territory when you're getting into it. Also, I'd just like to say that Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving put together two of the best performances in a comic book movie ever. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, they are phenomenal in that movie. I don't love the movie like you said, but the saving grace for me is they are both excellent in that movie. So I think that's a good pick. Number 19 for me is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Low, a lot of people are going to say. Why is this so low on your list?
Oh, I will say.
Yes. And it's so low on my list because, by the way, this was like on my rated one, this was like number 8. And
and again, I think I mentioned it before. It's worth repeating that like these movies are all
great.
We're nitpicking. There's a reason that we came to a top 25. Like these are all movies that I would give very positive scores to. I mean, the ranking of them is hardly relevant. It's really just an excuse to talk about good movies.
Yes, it is. That's all this is. That's all this podcast ever has been.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, what do you want me to say? It's if the Russo brothers took Marvel characters and directed an espionage thriller that belongs among the likes of The Bourne Identity and all these great espionage thrillers of the past. It's a phenomenal movie. The direction is great. The dynamic between Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson is phenomenal. It's just everything about this movie is good. There, yeah. I said it, all right? I said Captain America and the Winter Soldier is a good movie.
All right. Number 18 for me is a movie we've mentioned in passing. I don't think it's shown up on your list. It's X-Men First Class.
It was in my honorable mentions.
Right. Okay. So while this movie doesn't have the like in-your-face action style that a movie like Kingsman or Kick-Ass does, I think what Matthew Vaughn did really well. I think overall, like en masse, I might think the characters are better in these newer X-Men movies than they were in the original ones. Like it's difficult, right? Because you have the originals with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like iconic comic book movie characters, right?
I'd be willing to say that they might be the two best performances of a single character.
Yeah.
It's like over the course of a number of movies.
Just in general or of a comic book character?
Comic book character.
Okay.
But like over the course of a number of movies, they might be the two best like performances of comic book characters.
Yeah.
They're excellent.
But also James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender in particular do the characters justice in ways that you couldn't possibly name. I love Jennifer Lawrence as Raven. I love Nicholas Hoult as Beast. It's difficult to talk about, I think, because, again, those characters in particular, and the movie is focused more on characters. Wolverine's not in the movie. It's about Professor X and Magneto and their origins. So it's difficult to talk about it, given the weight of their predecessors. But what I think it does is I think it tells a more nuanced story than the original X-Men films do.
For sure.
Obviously, there's a lot to do with, again, more political satire in the film, or at least political commentary in regards to the Cold War. I love it. I really do. I also just think it's really exciting. Like the whole Bay of Pigs scene is
very good.
Great comic book filmmaking. So,
yeah, I think it's a really good movie. Like I said, I don't find myself going back to it as much as I go back to X2 for whatever reason. Number 18 for me is Iron Man. Original Iron Man. You will not see Iron Man 2 on this list. I know I've named 2 of the Iron Man movies, but it's so good. Robert Downey Jr. was one of the riskiest castings Disney could have made. and he absolutely nails it in every single movie he's in, starting with this one. R.I.P. my boy Terrence Howard. He isn't dead. He's just not Rhodey anymore.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges makes for an awesome comic book movie villain. The whole box of scraps yell is one of my favorite lines in comic book movies. Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. It's just Iron Man's awesome.
I got really confused for a second because you mentioned. Now I literally just forgot the actor's name. Who were you talking about?
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges, and I got confused because I forgot that it was Mickey Rourke that played Whiplash in Iron Man 2. Yeah.
The Iron Man movies like their villains to be actors that are very much no longer in the prime of their careers.
Even though much are difficult to understand what the fuck they're saying. Like, this wasn't quite the height, but like after this, Jeff Bridges became one of those guys along with Mickey Rourke and Nick Nolte as like dudes in movies who are old and you can't understand a fucking word they're saying.
I really like the later stage of Jeff Bridges' career. Like Iron Man, Crazy Heart, True Grit is such an insane 3-year run. I think all 3 of those movies are fucking awesome. Hell or High Water's phenomenal. Like I love the later stage of Jeff Bridges' career. Mickey Rourke and Nick Nolte. The Wrestler was good.
Nick Nolte, I think, has been better than Mickey Rourke.
I can't think of anything Nick Nolte's been in over the last decade.
He was in Warrior.
Oh, he was in Warrior. That's right.
He was the dad in Warrior.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I'm looking at his page right now. Give me a second. He was in Angel Has Fallen.
That didn't see it.
He was in A Walk in the Woods.
Didn't see it.
Parker, that one Jason Statham movie.
Didn't see it.
Head Full of Honey.
Didn't see it for sure. Didn't see it.
6, that Adam Sandler movie that came out on Netflix.
That movie makes me want to throw up.
He was in The Zookeeper with Kevin.
Didn't see it.
Kevin, fuck is his name?
Costner?
No, the Adam Sandler's friend.
James?
Yeah, Kevin James. Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I didn't see it.
He was in Gangster Squad.
Oh, I forgot about that movie. Had so much potential to be good, and then it was just a steamy pile of shit.
Yeah, it was really boring.
Yeah.
Sean Penn was in that movie. Well,
was that also a Josh Brolin movie? Was Josh Brolin in Gangster Squad?
I think so. So never mind. Nick Nolte has not been in very many good things.
No.
Recently. Let's see. Josh Brolin was in the movie. Yeah.
God, Josh Brolin had a terrible run for a little bit.
It was Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Josh Brolin, Sean Penn, Nick Nolte, Anthony Mackie, Giovanni Ribisi, Michael Pena, Robert Patrick is in the movie.
It's the greatest cast of all time. It's one of the great casts of all time that was completely squandered by a terrible movie.
Yeah. All right, that doesn't matter anymore. We're just moving on. Number 17.
Yeah, let's just move on.
All right, number 17 for me is a movie that I didn't actually know was based on a comic book until today.
Okay.
And that is Men in Black.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was based on a comic book.
I love Men in Black. It's one of the movies it's one of those movies that like I have a personal connection with.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Men in Black. I've seen it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. It's another one of those things where like I really like it in terms of like it being a sci-fi comedy. But what I think makes the movie work the most is obviously the chemistry between Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Like it's one of those things where it's another thing that's like become ubiquitous in pop culture. Is like Men in Black.
Yeah,
it's a thing. Like I don't really know what else I can say other than like also the song that Will Smith did for that movie.
I was about to say the song is sick.
Yeah, it's not like one of the bad ones that he did. He did a song, the Wild Wild West song. That song sucks. That movie sucks. But here come the Men in Black. That song is awesome.
It is.
That movie's awesome.
You mentioned Wild Wild West, so I have to tell the story. Have you ever seen the Death of Superman Lives documentary?
I have not. Rest in peace, John Schnepp, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who directed the movie. I
Yeah.
follow I used to follow a couple of YouTube channels that he was very heavily affiliated with.
Mhm.
I know he directed the movie. I haven't seen it, but he passed away a few years ago.
It's awesome documentary. I highly recommend you. It's about the production of the 1990s Nick Cage Superman movie that Tim Burton was going to direct.
Yep.
And Kevin Smith was a writer on that movie, and one of the producers on the movie, I don't remember who it was, wanted Kevin Smith to write a script that involves Superman fighting a giant spider at the end. That guy went on to produce Wild Wild West, and Kevin Smith said in an interview one time he got his fucking spider.
He really, really wanted his protagonist to fight a spider.
Yeah, so they put Kenneth Branagh, by the way, plays Arliss Lovelace in Wild Wild West, who, speaking of weird filmographies, Kenneth Branagh. It's like he goes from Hamlet to playing the worst villain.
Yeah, and then like his directing career is also
very strange.
Strange. He has like the bad. He was the one that directed Macbeth, right?
Yeah.
He's really bad at like old adaptations. Like his adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express also sucks.
Yeah, I really like his adaptation of Hamlet.
I don't, but okay.
I think his version of Cinderella is like delightful.
Also, by the way, apparently he's directing another Agatha Christie adaptation.
Yeah, he's doing Death on the Nile,
which is a great book, by the way.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in a while, but
he also directed the first Thor movie.
Yes, the movie's bad.
Yes, it is.
But he also plays Hercule Poirot, doesn't he? He stars in the movie. Yeah. Yikes.
Very crazy mustache. I don't know.
Yeah, Poirot did have a crazy mustache.
Yes. Have you seen the 70s Murder on the Orient Express?
Yeah, I watched it in a class that I took.
It's very good.
I took maybe not the 70s one. I might have watched the 90s one. Give me a second. Let me see. I took a class called Law and Order.
SVU. Dun dun.
Actually, I don't know. It was Law and Courts. My bad. So we were learning about law generally. And no, it was not the 1974 edition. It was a TV edition that had come out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the 70.
You start talking about your number 17, and I'll look it up.
Yeah. My number 17 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Similar to Deadpool 2, I think this is the superior Guardians movie. I think the addition of Kurt Russell as Ego the Living Planet was fucking sick, and he was so good in that movie. And I thought Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana had their best chemistry in this movie. I like Mantis. I think she's a very funny character. I like pretty much everything about this movie, including the soundtrack. As always, James Gunn needs a great soundtrack in his movies, and this one, very similar to the first one, has an awesome soundtrack. Specifically, the use of Brandy, She's a Fine Girl, I think is a really cool addition to the movie.
Okay, I think the one that I watched was the 2011 version.
Okay.
With David Suchet. It looks familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was part of a Poirot series. I don't know. I'm gonna keep looking while we're talking because now it's kind of annoying me. But number 16 for me, and it's a movie that I think will show up on your list at some point. I don't know. You seem to be pretty fond of it when we've spoken about it before. Is speaking of Mickey Rourke, by the way. It is. What are you doing?
I just got a voicemail. It's all just music.
Oh, so speaking of Mickey Rourke and speaking of Frank Miller adaptations, my next one is Sin City.
Yep.
Again, I think Sin City falls in the category of Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino did their absolute best to recreate that graphic novel and specifically its iconic visual style on screen.
Yep.
And I think they did it very, very well. The movie's really good. So, sequel sucks. That's
yeah, Dame to Kill For, not good.
That's really all I have to say. Bruce Willis is really good. Mickey Rourke is my favorite character in the movie. I believe Josh Brolin's also in it, right? Or is he in the second one?
No, he's in A Dame to Kill For.
Gotcha. Sorry,
I'm telling you, he went on.
Is in.
Yes.
As is Benicio del Toro, one of my favorite actors.
I'm telling you, man, Brolin went on a run in between No Country for Old Men and Infinity War that was just not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're on number 16, right?
Yeah.
My number 16 is also Sin City.
Cool.
So you talked about it. Sin City's awesome. I didn't know until today that Tarantino only directed one scene.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought it was a Robert Rodriguez film. By the way, did you know that there's apparently a Japanese version of Murder on the Orient Express? I'm looking at all the different adaptations right now, and it's literally, there's just number 2. It ranks all of them. Number 2 is the Japanese version. It's literally filmed with Japanese people. Like, there's a Japanese dude with a mustache playing Hercule Poirot.
That's very funny. Is number 1 1974?
Yeah, I either watched that one or the 2011 TV version. I can't tell which one it was.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
Yeah, Sin City is awesome. And you mentioned it. It's just the style of the movie is incredible. And just a reminder, it's so hard to adapt Frank Miller that Frank Miller couldn't even adapt Frank Miller.
Care to elaborate, or?
No, he did A Dame to Kill For.
Oh, I didn't know he directed that.
I believe so. Or did he do, what's the other one that's like the Sin City movie? The Spirit. That one might be Frank Miller.
I'll look it up. Because I don't know the answer to that question. Frank Miller. No, he was just a writer on both of the Sin City movies. He directed
The Spirit.
Yeah. He also directed Dame to Kill For with Robert Rodriguez. It was the two of them doing it together.
Oh, okay. But yeah, both of those bad movies.
Sin City, not bad movie.
No, Sin City, good movie.
Yeah.
So what's your number 15?
It's the first Deadpool, which I it's funny, while you were talking about Deadpool, I couldn't help but disagree with every take that you had.
Okay, that's fair.
I think Deadpool, the first one, is better. It's endlessly rewatchable to me. And I think it's another one of those movies that I kind of include because I think it has like sneaky significance in the comic book genre.
Oh, it absolutely does.
For making like, how do I want to say this? For making like crass comic book movies cool, basically. Like I obviously Blade was rated R, and Blade fucking rocks. But I don't think we'd have a movie like so. I think what Deadpool did and what it's kind of allowed other comic book movies to do is weave in like outlandish, like irreverent humor almost. Like I don't know as if we'd have a Birds of Prey if it weren't for Deadpool. For better or for worse. I don't think we'd have. I don't know as if we'd have James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
That's the example I was going to use.
In its current duration without Deadpool.
Yeah.
I think if Deadpool hadn't come out, the studio might have pushed him to make it more of a like PG-13 kind of movie. But for a time, Deadpool was the highest grossing R-rated film ever, right?
It was. It was overtaken by Joker.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So it kind of proved that like it's another one of those movies, and I have a few of them on this list that kind of prove that you can do different things with the comic book genre. And Deadpool for me was such a breath of fresh air that when I saw it, and I still feel that way till to today.
Yeah, I think it's a really good movie. My number 15 is a Zack Snyder movie. The next 3 movies on my list are Zack Snyder movies. I have 3 Zack Snyder movies in a row. And this one is Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Is that the other one that you thought people were going to hate?
No, I'm going to get to that one.
Oh, because I guess people really like the Snyder Cut.
Yeah. The Snyder Cut, I think, is very good. I get that it's 4 hours long, and I get that it's in a very small box on your screen. So that's kind of annoying.
Stupid.
It was stupid. But I think this movie was very good. And I've actually watched it twice. I have spent 8 hours of my life watching Zack Snyder's Justice League. And
I bought The Irishman.
Mm-hmm.
Still haven't watched it because it's too fucking long.
Also a very good movie. But I think we should have gotten a 2-part Justice League movie the first time and just let the man do what he wanted instead of bringing in Joss Whedon, also another bad guy.
Yeah, well, I think part of it was complicated.
Yeah, and there were other reasons because of family reasons for Zack Snyder.
Right. So, like, it was very shitty for Warner Brothers to be like, oh, your daughter killed herself?
Yeah.
No movie for you.
It was very shitty one.
For known piece of shit, Joss Whedon. Like, I don't get that. It was a really bad move on their part.
But I get some of the things in the movie are dragged out. Like there's this weird singing scene in the Batman scene with Aquaman when they're in whatever country it is. I don't remember, Iceland or wherever it is. With all these Nordic women singing as Aquaman swims away, and it takes like 10 minutes. I get there's some stuff that where the pacing is off. I get the Joker scene at the end is very strange. But also I really liked that idea of the like post-apocalyptic like Darkseid universe that I wish we would get to see more of, but I believe Zack Snyder's probably done with Warner Brothers at this point. Yeah. So probably. And I know that there's a deleted scene where Jared Leto says we live in a society. And I wish they kept that in the movie. I really do. And I hate Jared Leto's Joker just as much as the next guy. But I just think it was a really good movie, and I do think it has rewatch value in parts if you rewatch it in parts for something that's 4 hours long.
I don't want to belabor the point, but some breaking news just happened in the NFL that I know it doesn't relate to this podcast, but just for a moment, I want to get your reaction on this. The NFL Players Association is investigating the Jacksonville Jaguars because Urban Meyer made comments today claiming that vaccination status would be in consideration for whether or not they'd cut players. Just putting that out there. Stove next week.
My instant reaction is Urban Meyer's a bad coach and should have never gotten an NFL job. That's my reaction.
Number 14 for me is the movie that I was talking about that has since gotten memed to shit. And I kind of feel bad because I still love the movie. But again, it's like V for Vendetta in the ways where like some people have co-opted it. Like the people that take it really seriously have co-opted it to mean something really disgusting. And that's I'm the Joker, baby. It's the Joker from last year, the Todd Phillips Joker, 2 years ago. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I understand that it's Taxi Driver with face paint. I understand that like a lot of like incel dudes have taken it to be like their school shooting manifesto.
Yeah.
I still love the movie.
It's a fantastic movie.
Like here's the thing. Sure, it's Taxi Driver told through the lens of King of Comedy with clown makeup on, but also Taxi Driver and King of Comedy are really good movies.
Great movies.
So Again, it's one of the most talked about movies, comic book movies ever at this point. The discourse on the movie is annoying, and I don't like engaging with it. I'll just say that I love the movie and leave it at that. How about that?
I also love the movie. I didn't put it on my list just because I haven't really had the desire to watch it since last time I saw it in theaters.
I have, and I just haven't watched it. Like, it was on HBO Max for the longest time, and I was
It
like,
still is, I
awesome.
believe.
Is it still on there?
I think so, yeah.
I was like, awesome, it's on there. I want to watch it again. And for some reason, I just haven't sat down and watched it.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal movie. I think Joaquin Phoenix is excellent. I think Robert De Niro does a great job in limited screen time as well. But I didn't put it on the list just because I haven't had that like itch to go back and rewatch Joker. It is sort of a tough watch, like at times, just for not in a bad sense, just in the sense that there's a lot going on in the movie and it deals with a lot of shit. And like, not like it's tough to sit through or anything, but it's just like it's tough in the sense that do I really want something that goes like fairly deep right now? But saying that, my number 14 is Batman v Superman.
I forgot. I'm gonna be honest with you. I forgot Zack Snyder directed that movie.
Yeah.
I forgot that he directed that movie. Didn't he? I assume I know what your next movie is now that you mentioned 3 Zack Snyder films, and I forgot he directed that movie too. But anyways, talk about it.
Then no, you might not know what it is.
Let me see.
But yeah, I
think I know what movie it is, and I completely forgot he directed it too. Is number 13 Man of Steel?
No.
Oh, okay.
So Batman v Superman. This is where the people start to hate me again. I think I was starting to get them back by mentioning good movies, and now they're gonna hate me again. This movie's dumb as shit.
Yeah, it is.
This movie is dumb as a box of rocks. Well, guess what? Ben Affleck is a good Batman. And this is coming from the number one Ben Affleck hater on the planet. I spent most of my life hating Ben Affleck with a burning passion just because I'm a huge fan of the character Daredevil. And he was in Daredevil, and that movie stinks.
So next episode, top 10 Ben Affleck movies?
I will say Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and not talk about it anymore.
Not even The Town?
The Town's fine.
The Town is... I love The Town.
Okay, The Town's good. I don't like Ben Affleck in it. Like, it's just one of those things same with Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting, really good movie. Don't want to talk about it. But Ben Affleck's a really good Batman and a really good Bruce Wayne. It's hard to get both correct, and I think he does a really good job at both of them. I think
Spider-Man.
Yes.
Getting both of them correct.
Yes, we will talk about that with Spider-Man. I think Henry Cavill was perfect casting for Superman, and I think his writing in this movie is bad, and it's just The Dark Knight Returns combined with the death of Superman, which is really stupid. But it's
you take two of the most well-respected comic or superhero stories of all time, and just like mishmash them together in a really disgusting way.
Yeah. I get why people hate this movie. I hated this movie for a long time. And then last summer, I randomly rewatched it because it was on HBO Max. And I texted you guys, and I was like, guys, I think I have a problem. I think I like Batman v Superman. I've watched it like 6 times since then. I just like this movie irrationally. It has everything that I shouldn't like about a movie. Ben Affleck, bad writing, bad character development. And I've seen it so many times. It is Jesse Eisenberg being a very strange Lex Luthor.
A bad one. I think I'll just cut to the chase and say he's not good as Lex Luthor.
He isn't. And it has a bunch of things I should hate, but it also has Amy Adams, who I'm a absolute sucker for. I love Amy Adams and just about everything she's in. And I just like it. I can't explain why. I have no idea why. But I had to put it on the list. Yeah, because I've seen it 8 times over the last year.
It's an Amy Adams joint, just like how you called the Night House the new Rebecca Hall joint.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. Yeah. It was really good, by the way. I was wondering.
Yeah, I saw your review of it.
Yeah. Number 13 for me is another Matthew Vaughn movie. It's third time's a charm on this list, and that's Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is another movie I haven't seen in a very long time, and I should, again, either buy it or seek it out somewhere. But I don't know, man. Kick-Ass is just so friggin' cool. Like, it's one of those things. Is like it's got a lot of like super bad energy, superhero form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that was like a pull quote somewhere. It had to have been.
It must have been.
And then it was super bad with superheroes in it. I mean, even to the level that it has Christopher Mintz-Plasse in the movie.
Yes.
But like the trio of Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was like 12 when that movie came out, it felt like, and Chloe Grace Moretz's hit girl. Chloe Grace Moretz steals the whole movie.
Aaron Taylor Johnson was only 20. Holy shit.
Yeah. Is only 20 or was? Oh, okay. Let's say.
No, he's 41 now.
41 now.
He was 30, I mean. I meant to say 30. I'm an idiot. No, he was 20. He's only 31. I can't do math.
Let's say he aged 20 years in 10 years. That was crazy.
No. Yeah. Being Quicksilver for a movie will do that to you.
Kick-Ass is good.
That's 2 Quicksilvers in that movie, by the way. Evan Peters also in it.
Yeah. And just to say, Kick-Ass 2, not good.
Now, is there anything more satisfying nowadays than a good Nicolas Cage role?
I saw Pig, so no, not really.
Oh, was that not good?
No, it was really good. I'm saying there's not much more satisfying.
Oh, okay.
Nicolas Cage role.
Yeah, when Nick Cage finds the right role, like, did you see Mandy?
I haven't. I've heard very good things about it.
Mandy is fucking insane, and Nick Cage is awesome.
I'd like to remind people that Nicolas Cage is a great actor.
He is.
And he's had a really good run these last... I call it the Nicolas Cage Y'all Must Have Forgot tour.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, Nicolas Cage is in a bunch of movies that, like, I don't really think very many people are seeing.
No, God, no.
You know, he was in Mandy. Was Mandy the Lovecraft one, or was that a different movie?
I don't think so.
He was in a movie not too long ago that premiered at, like, Fantastic Fest that was, like, based off of a bunch of Lovecraft stories, I think. Let me see. Or was that Willy's Wonderland?
That was probably Willy's Wonderland.
Oh, no, it was Color Out of Space.
Oh, didn't see that one either.
Who was that directed by? Richard Stanley, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep. So there was that one. There was Willy's Wonderland, which I've heard a lot about. I haven't watched it. I mean, he was in Into the Spider-Verse. Just like to point that out there.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting to it.
And then Pig was really good. But like I said, Y'all Must Have Forgot tour. One of the weirdest careers in Hollywood history, but still
very strange. We won't mention a Ghost Rider on this list, I don't think. So.
Unfortunately, yeah. I wish Ghost Rider was good. Ghost Rider.
I do too.
Awesome character.
Yeah, I really wish Ghost Rider was good.
Yeah, but like, wasn't Ghost Rider directed by the guys that directed Crank? I think it was, because I remember the action in that movie being very similar to Crank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right.
Crank is a shit ton of fun, by the way.
I haven't seen Crank in a long time. I saw it once.
Crank is insane. The only thing I remember from Crank 2, which I remember also being nuts, is the scene where Jason Statham is running around hooking up jumper cables to his nipples and like shocking himself. Yeah, it was insane. That was Crank 2 High Voltage. That's what that movie was called.
Ah, yes.
What's your number 13?
It's Watchmen.
Wow. I was not expecting it to be this high.
Yeah, I used to, like, before I read Watchmen, I didn't love the movie, but reading the graphic novel really, like, enhanced my viewing experience of Watchmen, because it is so goddamn accurate until, obviously, the end. But I think for, like, yeah, it's very accurate, but at the same time, I think Zack Snyder made a good choice. I think the not having the squid almost works in his movie. And I really, really enjoyed it once I read the graphic novel. And I think you said you thought the performances could have been better. I thought the performances were great. I think Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach is phenomenal.
I think there are good ones and there are spotty ones.
And I'm drawing a blank on his name, the guy that plays Ozymandias.
Give me 1 second.
He's got Patrick Wilson, who I love Patrick Wilson. But yeah, I think the performances in Watchmen are really good.
No, not the show.
Show's also phenomenal.
Haven't seen it.
You should.
Yeah, I know Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays the comedian. That's not what I'm looking at.
Oh, yeah. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan's awesome as the comedian.
Oh, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is great as the comedian.
Yeah, I forgot about that as well. He's excellent.
Yeah. It's Matthew Goody.
Yes. Yeah. I really like that movie. So yeah, it's number 13. Those are my 3 Snyder joints.
I think it's a movie also that, like, in the minds of a lot of people, at least myself, has aged really well.
Yeah, that it's aged like a fine wine, I think.
Like I think the reception when the movie came out, and obviously I was like 10, so I don't really remember like that. But was probably negative to fairly lukewarm. I think at least some people are coming around to it.
I don't think you could have opened the movie in a better way than Zack Snyder did.
Yeah.
With the times they are changing and like the montage, I thought it was excellent.
It's a great opening.
Mm-hmm. What's your number 12?
Number 12. Finally getting to the Dirty Dozen, the second half of this list after an hour and a half. You were right. This episode's going to be 3 hours long.
I told you.
Number 12 for me is X-Men Days of Future Past. What that movie did is it took everything from X-Men First Class and combined it with everything that was good about the original X-Men movies. Mm-hmm. And, like, sure, is time travel confusing? Yeah. Did they retcon a bunch of shit later? Annoyingly so. Yeah. We did. Did it make the entire X-Men franchise kind of a mess? Yeah. Yeah, it did. Admittedly, it did. But X-Men Days of Future Past is like the pinnacle of, like, it's another one of those movies where I kind of look past the plot holes and just, like, love the movie for what it is. Mm-hmm. Because I think X-Men is one of those rare franchises where, like, every character is so well ingrained and, like, the actors that play them are those characters. Yeah. And maybe it's because of like when the original movies came out. We talked about it already. You know, you have Patrick Stewart, you have Sir Ian McKellen, and Matthew Fassbender playing a single character. You have Patrick Stewart and
Michael Fassbender.
What did I say? What did I say?
Matthew.
Oh, sorry, Michael Fassbender. My bad. And I was about to not remember the name of what the hell is his name?
McAvoy.
What is that?
James McAvoy?
Yes. And then you combine that, you throw Hugh Jackman in there, which is, to me, Hugh Jackman is the best. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is the best comic book character in a movie. Period. Like, I think.
I disagree, but I'll get to mine, and it's a little different.
Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. But I don't think it's one of those roles where, like, oh, you could never cast somebody else as this guy. To be honest, with a lot of people, you kind of can. That's beside me. You cannot cast another man as Wolverine.
They're going to.
20th Century Fox is gonna fuck it up.
But it's Marvel now. It's Disney.
Marvel owns it now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Disney owns Fox too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you throw Hugh Jackman in there. Halle Berry's in that movie, right? If I remember correctly. She's back.
Yeah, she's back as Storm, I believe.
Give me 1 second. My brain is kind of turning to mush as we speak. So
Halle Berry, gorgeous human being, by the way.
Also really good as Storm.
Yes.
Yeah. You got Peter Dinklage is in the movie. Love Peter Dinklage.
As character that was in the original trilogy played by a very large black man.
Yeah. Well, and you got a lot of characters that weren't really present in like Days of Future Past finally colliding with that story. Like, it's awesome to have Colossus back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's awesome to have Iceman back. I love that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I like X-Men a lot. And X-Men Days of Future Past is really good.
My number 12, yes, this is a comic book movie, is Road to Perdition.
Okay, so that was one of the movies that I saw on one of those lists, and I was like, really? That's a comic book movie?
Road to Perdition is awesome. I don't think enough people have seen this movie, which is weird because it's an early 2000s Tom Hanks movie. And it's also got Paul Newman in it, so it makes it seem like a shit ton of people would see the movie, but I don't think they have.
Movie.
Like,
Paul Newman, I liked him in The Hustler. Late 2004.
Don't you dare badmouth Paul Newman over The Hustler on this podcast, friend. Though Paul Newman's one of my 3 favorite actors, and The Hustler is one of my 10 favorite movies. So,
I know.
Yeah, it's a gangster movie based on a comic book. I'm also a sucker for gangster movies. I think gangster movies are awesome. Outside of Gangster Squad, which, like I said, I really wish that movie was good. But this is just all I'm going to say is, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's just such an awesome movie. Tom Hanks is phenomenal, as always. Paul Newman is excellent, as always. Paul Newman is good in everything he's in. He's good as Doc Hudson in Cars. Like, that's how you know the guy's a good actor, is he's good in Cars.
I'm going to be honest with you. Until you just said that, I didn't know Paul Newman.
That's Paul Newman.
Good for him. Is Paul Newman still alive?
No, I believe that was the last role of his career.
Damn. A lot of actors have really weird last roles.
Oh, yeah.
I believe Robin Williams' last role was Night at the Museum 3.
I think it was. Oh, no. Paul Newman's last role was in 2008, he voiced a meerkat in the hour and 23 minute documentary called The Meerkats.
Wow.
But his last actual role was Doc Hudson.
Yeah, Robin Williams' last role, he voiced a dog in a movie called Absolutely Anything, starring Simon Pegg. Second to last role was as Teddy Roosevelt in Night at the Museum 3.
Which was a very good role for him, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
The first Night at the Museum is very good, I think. Yeah. I think that's a really fun movie.
Number 11 for me is 2012's Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still something that's magical about that movie to me. I think a lot of people our age have the feeling regarding the MCU, like, have that, like, it's like the MCU nostalgia is gonna age very well.
Oh yeah.
Because, like, we were teenagers when those movies came out, and, like, as a kid who loves superheroes, seeing all of these superheroes, first of all, be good,
mm-hmm.
and second of all, be good on the same screen together. And again, it's movie magic. The first Avengers Assemble moment, or at least the one that's the one I'm thinking of is the one that's in every fucking like highlight reel of the episode.
When they're in New York and the camera spins around them.
The camera's spinning around all of them as they come on, man. Come on now. And you know what? Is it the same last battle scene as the first Transformers movie? Kinda. Kinda, yeah.
I never thought of that.
I mean, they're all fighting a bunch of fucking alien ships that come down from the sky. Mm-hmm. And then, like, Hulk is doing the same thing Optimus Prime was doing in the Transformers movie, where he's jumping through the air and throwing them at each other. It's the same shit. But guess what? It's cool in both movies. And then, like, at the very end, after they all get beat up and Iron Man's still alive, he's like, I know this great falafel place. Like, it's
shawarma, excuse me.
Shawarma. My bad. Because then there's the end credit scene where they go and get the shawarma.
Yeah.
Yeah. The movie rules. It's really
I'm
cool.
going to admit something I've never admitted on this podcast before. I didn't see this movie in theaters. I didn't see this movie until my freshman year of college.
Damn.
My history of seeing MCU movies in theaters is very strange. I saw all 3 Iron Man movies in theaters. I saw Captain America 1 and 2. Then I saw Civil War. So all 3 Captain America movies. And then after Civil War, I saw all of them in theaters. But before that, like, the first 2 Thor movies I didn't see. I didn't see Incredible Hulk. I didn't see the first or second Avengers movies.
I saw the first Thor movie in theaters. I think I remember that.
So I didn't really get super into the MCU until my freshman year of college because Spider-Man Homecoming came out in 2017. And so I went and saw Homecoming in theaters, and I was like, I want to watch more of these movies. My number 11 is the Lego Batman movie.
That's a good movie, man. I'm not laughing at the pick. It's a good movie. No. I just think it's funny. I just think it's really funny.
The Lego Batman movie's awesome, dude. Will Arnett is such a great Batman. And there's so many. We finally get to see Billy D. Williams as Two-Face because he voices Two-Face in the movie. Like, the Lego Batman movie is so much fun. And I love the Lego movie. Like, I think the Lego movie is an excellent movie.
Yeah.
And when this came out, I was like, I need to see this. And so I saw it. The Lego Batman movie is so much fun. It's just one of the most fun-loving, like, upbeat movies you'll ever see. And there's so many great jokes in it too. It's hilarious. So I really, like, I wanted to get it into my top 10, but I just couldn't put it ahead of anything else. So it needed to be just outside. I love the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah. We'll start. It's top 10 time, baby.
It is.
I'm shifting around my top 10. I will not lie to you and say that I'm already moving things around. Number 10 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. That's another one where, like, you said all the things about Guardians 2.
Yeah.
I believe the opposite of what you believe in the fact that I think that the first Guardians is the significantly better movie in this case. I think
really not a huge fan of Guardians.
I like it. I think it's pretty good. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
I love the first one as well. Like, I have, like, nothing negative to say about the first one. I just thought the second one did most of the things of the first a little bit better. Actually, I do have one negative thing to say. I don't think Ronan's a great villain.
That's fair.
So that was my biggest problem. And I think Ego is one of the better villains in the MCU. So
that's fair. The MCU has always had a problem with villains.
Absolutely.
And part of it is just the nature of, like, you know, the superhero, and especially, like, later as they move forward, the superheroes are teaming up so much. Like, how are you gonna have a villain that people give a shit about?
Yeah,
Thanos was the guy. Like, that's what we knew we were building up to it. So, like, the hell am I gonna care about, you know, Ronan?
Yeah.
Like, we know we're moving past this guy here to another guy, right? And it's the same thing. You have the problem with, like, Superman villains. It's difficult to have a villain for Superman because, like, he's invincible. So, like, you know, you got to figure those things out. No, I like Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot of my favorite picks were movies that kind of did new things with characters or introduced characters to the popular lexicon that weren't as well known, and Guardians is the number one example of that, or one of the number one example of that. We'll talk about a different one later. We already know what's coming. Motherfucking Wesley Snipes coming at this place. But Guardians of the Galaxy is so freaking cool. I didn't know a single thing about the characters until I saw the movie. I own a copy somewhere. It's at my house. The first issue of Guardians of the Galaxy. I bought it at Universal Studios. It's like an alternate cover they were selling there. Like I said, I have it somewhere. But yeah, I like the movie a lot. And
I did.
In particular, I think also Guardians nails casting. In a way. And a lot of Marvel movies do. It's a thing that Marvel does. Like, really good at casting people. Like, yeah, Tony Stark, really good. Robert Downey Jr., really good as Iron Man, you know? But I think the biggest nailing of casting was Dave Bautista as Drax.
It's excellent.
Drax is one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and I love the fact that it restarted Dave Bautista's career, because he's talked about like before he took Drax, he was broke. Like broke. Like he'd just gotten off his WWE run. And it like saved him.
Yeah.
So I love that for him. Good for Batista. He was also good in Army of the Dead, another Zack Snyder movie.
That is true. I forget. I did also see Guardians in theaters, because that first trailer with Hooked on a Feeling was like so cool, and I was like, I know nothing about this. At first, I didn't even know it was a Marvel movie. I was just like, this is a movie I want to see, and then found out it was an MCU movie. So yeah, also saw that one in theaters. My number 10, and you're about to start sensing a little bit of a theme, is Spider-Man 2. Doc Ock is awesome. For Molina, I'm so happy he's coming back.
Yeah, dude. Not only is like, oh, he's coming back. Like, I was kind of skeptical about all the multiverse rumors. Oh yeah, I'll believe that shit when I see it. And then like Doctor Strange shows up in the trailer, and you're like, damn.
They might actually do this.
They're actually going to do the multiverse thing. And then Alfred Molina shows up at the end of the trailer. Hi, Peter. You son of a bitch. you mother effer. Who are you in this movie for? Damn it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. I thought about putting Spider-Man No Way Home like number 3 on this list. But yeah, it's Spider-Man 2. Like, say what you want about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, all right? He's not a good Peter Parker. Let's just put it out there. He's not really a great Peter Parker. He's 48 years old.
Actually, you finished your point.
He's not the worst Peter Parker. That's Andrew Garfield.
Right.
But he's not a great Peter Parker. He looks way too old. One of my favorite things ever said about this movie is on the Mr. Sunday Movies YouTube channel. They do a series called Caravan of Garbage. Do you watch Mr. Sunday Movies? I highly recommend them. They're very funny. That channel. But on the Mr. Sunday Movies YouTube channel, they were doing they do this series called Caravan of Garbage, where they watch a movie and then just talk about it for like 25 minutes. They're not all bad movies. Don't believe the title. And the scene after the Doc Ock train fight, when he stops the train and everyone brings him in.
Action scenes in comic book movie history.
It is. But after everyone carries him in on over their heads and lay him down, a guy says, he's just a kid, no older than my son. And one of the guys, Mr. Sunday Movies partner, goes, what he should have said, he's just a man, no older than my friend Terry. And yeah, is his acting a little subpar? Sure it is. Kirsten Dunst will always be my MJ. Zendaya is great. Kirsten Dunst is my MJ. I've had a crush on Kirsten Dunst since I was 4 years old.
I hope they have a scene in No Way Home where is Tobey Maguire confirmed in the movie?
No, neither is Andrew Garfield.
Okay, so if Tobey Maguire is in the movie, I hope they have a scene where he meets Zendaya and he's like,
what?
She's dark skinned. Confused that she's just a different race.
And doesn't have red hair.
Yeah. That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah, it's Spider-Man 2. It's probably the objectively best out of the 3 Tobey Spider-Man movies. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. So what's your number 10 or number 9?
My number 9 is Iron Man from 2008. Kind of look. So it's going to be difficult to talk about these movies because everything you could possibly say about these movies has already been said, specifically with MCU films.
Yeah.
What exactly do you want me to say about Iron Man that hasn't been said on this podcast or by any other neck bearded mouth breather on some MCU fandom forum?
Yep.
Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And that's it. Movie good. Let's move on.
All right. My number 9, you mentioned it earlier. It's Kingsman: The Secret Service. This movie rules so hard. We talked all about Matthew Vaughn and the action and stuff, and so you did a great job explaining it earlier. All of those things here. Just take that audio, like remember that from earlier, and just act like I'm saying it now. Movie good, move on.
All right, number 8 is, I'll make my point about Spider-Man here because number 8 for me is Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
My point about Spider-Man and why Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man and no one can fight me about it is because I think Tobey Maguire was better as Peter Parker than he was as Spider-Man. Like, I think in terms of nailing the character. So I think what the difficult part about Spider-Man is that he's essentially 2 different characters in one. And any actor to play that has got to know that, and whoever's writing the script has to know that. I think what Sam Raimi's script got wrong about the character was that as Spider-Man, he was just Peter Parker with some webs on him. I know it's like a cliche thing to say. He's like, oh, he's not making enough jokes. He's not as like confident. But I think that's part of the Spider-Man character. Is like,
I disagree. I thought
the suit gives him the confidence to do things that he could not do as Peter Parker.
I thought he was confident enough as Spider-Man, and by Spider-Man 2 to make a better Spider-Man. I just don't.
He's confident enough to start dancing in Spider-Man 3.
Well, Spider-Man 3 is a different. I already talked about Spider-Man 3. No, I think the thing for me is I've never loved the writing of the Peter side of things.
That's
right. I think the Spider-Man side of things is good enough. It's just like, I just don't think, like, yeah, I get he acts nerdy and like not confident when he's Peter Parker, as he should, but at the same time, like, there's some really bad dialogue he has as Peter 100%. Parker.
Yep.
And like, I think it's in, or it might be in Spider-Man 1, but at one point he has like this whole monologue. He tells MJ about like, oh, what did Spider-Man say about me? Yeah, it's in Spider-Man 1. And he's like, well, he said that your eyes are beautiful like the evening sun. And like, he just gives this entire spiel. And I don't think that side of the writing is great for these movies.
You're right. And I choose to skip over the Andrew Garfield stuff because I originally held the opinion of like, oh, Andrew Garfield was fine as Spider-Man, but I don't buy the American Eagle model playing Peter Parker, which I still hold is true. But I
do as well.
But in revisiting those movies, he's also not good as Spider-Man. Those movies just suck. I hate
they're terrible.
They're really bad, and he's really bad in them.
Speaking of, there's this weird thing where Tom Holland and Zendaya are dating now, like in real life. So that means all 3 live-action Spider-Men have dated their like counterparts,
which is pretty funny, actually.
It is. I was going to say MJ's, but obviously it was Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield and Gwen Stacy and Emma Stone, who I adore Emma Stone, have the worst romantic chemistry I've ever seen. And they were actually dating.
Yeah, it's bad. And then they tried to do the whole death of Gwen Stacy thing, and it went over poorly. And
yeah, no shit. It's my favorite 2 comic books of all time, are the night Gwen Stacy died and the one that's hanging up on my wall over there, The Green Goblin's Last Stand. Yeah. They're my 2 favorite comics of all time, and they ruined it. They fucked them up so bad.
Yeah. What's your number 8, Mark?
I cheated. It's Endgame and Infinity War.
Boo! Boo! Endgame is my number 7, so we can talk about it in conjunction.
Okay. I can't separate these movies. They're 2 very different movies. I'm not going to do my like Kill Bill thing where I'm like, oh, it's just one movie. They're 2 very different movies. And it's so hard for me to separate them and talk about them separately, because it is just the culmination of a saga. And
it is called the Infinity War saga for a reason.
Yeah, but it's just
comics, I should say.
Yeah, it's just such a perfect back-to-back of here's the shit going down, here's how we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
And it's just
Actually, I'll renege on my statement. I moved Endgame up. So
okay. But yeah, I think Endgame is the more rewatchable just for the moments. Like seeing Cap get Mjolnir and seeing the Cap versus Cap scene and seeing Tony with his dad. Like, I think it's slightly more rewatchable for that. But at the same time, I think Infinity War is the slightly better movie.
Dude, that last like half an hour of Infinity War,
it's unbelievable. As soon as
battle Wakanda,
as soon as Thor lands on Wakanda, that movie just kicks it into a higher gear. Which, first of all, one of the coolest shots in movie history is Thor coming down with Rocket and Groot, and he's got that blue light in his eye. It's so sick. But yeah, so I think Infinity War is the very slightly better movie. I think I have Infinity War as a 94 and Endgame as a 93. But I think Endgame is slightly more rewatchable, and it's just so hard for me to separate them. So I cheated and put them both in one spot.
You know, it's funny. I haven't actually watched Endgame since I saw it in theaters.
I've seen Endgame probably 10 times.
And I should. I really should rewatch it. And again, I've talked about it before. I don't know if it's been on air. I've certainly talked about it with you, Mark. My thoughts on the MCU going forward. Like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, that like the reason I love Endgame so much is because, like you mentioned, it's so final. Like I mentioned with the 2012 Avengers, there's the magic behind it, and like Avengers Endgame, the magic was like, this is the biggest undertaking in cinematic history.
Yeah.
To make 11 years, 20, how many movies is it? 22?
Yeah, I think Endgame was the 23rd, maybe 24th.
However many movies, almost 24 movies that all culminate in this moment here. And it delivers. Is it fan servicey as shit?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point, is it not? Like the point is to be the end of this saga. Wouldn't you want there to be points where people remember different parts of the saga? Like, I think taking the story in the route of like they have to time travel back to the other movies was the only possible way they could have made a movie that's meant to finish the arc of the MCU. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
I mean,
I still watched it, but I see the clip on Twitter every once and again when Cap gets Mjolnir and then like everybody starts to come back. I see it on Twitter and I get chills every time I watch it because I remember it's usually the clip with the fan reaction. I remember seeing it in theaters opening night. I'm getting chills now thinking about it.
Yep.
Yeah, like there's few moments where I call things like movie magic. That whole thing right there, the end of Endgame, is movie magic, and it's an unforgettable experience, honestly.
It's 24 movies legitimately ending with the snap of someone's fingers.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Number 7 for me, by the way, is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. You kind of already mentioned it. It's one of those movies where I mentioned it happens a lot with the MCU, where I either love the movies that are like height popcorn entertainment, a movie like The Avengers or like Guardians of the Galaxy or even Avengers Endgame to an extent, or I like the movies in the MCU that get weird and do things that you normally wouldn't see from a comic movie, like Thor Ragnarok or like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is hardly a comic movie. It's an espionage thriller, and it's fucking excellent. Specifically, the elevator scene is one of the best action scenes in the entirety of the MCU. So good that they had to do it again in Avengers Endgame. They had to have a redux, have a whole bit dedicated to that part of the movie. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is awesome. It's great.
My number 7. Here's a real shocker. Spider-Man: Homecoming.
I was going to say, which Spider-Man movie is it, Mark?
It's Spider-Man: Homecoming. This was I know he was in Civil War, but this was like our first like feature length introduction, like where he's the main character of Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and he's the best Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
Just plain and simple. He nails both sides of it excellently. I think that the twist of Adrian Toomes being her dad, why can't I think of her name? I'm gonna look it up. Son of a bitch.
Who's her?
His first love interest.
I can't remember her name either.
Oh my god, I'm an idiot. Liz. Her name is Liz. I think that's a great twist. I think the best scene in the movie might be the scene where they're going to the dance and Vulture is driving them. And he's just like, so, Pete, oh, you're not going to have too much fun tonight, are you? He's just giving him like the dad talk, but you know there's so much more behind it because he knows he's about to show off or show down with this guy in a little bit. After Liz gets out of the car and he takes out the gun and he's like, hey, you're gonna have fun with my daughter tonight, and that's all you're gonna do. And it's just Michael Keaton is fucking awesome. I love Michael Keaton. And
now, I don't want to spoil your list, but to this point, we have had no mention of Michael Keaton as Batman.
Oh, it will be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Batman '89 is coming up.
Okay, it's not on my list, so
okay.
I love that movie. I do, and it, again, kind of goes to should it have been an honorable mention over a movie like The Mask? Probably. Probably.
I'm fine with The Mask being on it. The Mask is super fun.
I just want to throw a shout out to a comic book movie that people don't know as a comic.
Yeah.
Book. That's why I put The Mask on there.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6 is Avengers Endgame. We've already talked about it enough. What's your number 6, Mark?
The people are going to be mad, Nunez.
What is it?
The people are going to be mad. It's The Dark Knight.
What? You bitch.
It's The Dark Knight. I don't have to say anything about it. The Dark Knight's a phenomenal movie. It was number 2 on my other list.
I know what number 1 is on your other list.
Yes, you know what number 1 is on both of my lists. Everyone knows what number 1 is on both of my lists. But yeah, The Dark Knight's phenomenal. Heath Ledger, blah, blah, blah. He was so good. Christian Bale. Michael Caine's a great Alfred, blah, blah, blah. It's so real. It's dark.
First name Lorenzo, last name Caine. Line only without the E.
Yeah, it's The Dark Knight. I'm gonna move on because I don't want to sit here and try to explain myself and have the people get even more mad.
I'll redeem your Dark Knight takes.
Yes, I know you will.
Number 5 is Blade. I had to move this movie up because every time we mention it, I keep thinking about how awesome Blade is. If you want to hear me talk about more about Blade, go watch the action movie video.
Yep.
Went into it over there. Wesley Snipes' as Blade is up there with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, is up there with Patrick Stewart as Professor X, is up there with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, as the best comic book castings of all time. Blade is fucking awesome. Blade 2 is also really good. Blade 2, directed by Guillermo del Toro, fun fact, for those who didn't know.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. The first one was directed by David S. Goyer, and then the second one was Guillermo del Toro. Yeah.
David Goyer, another one of those filmographies where you look at it and it's just like, oh boy.
I'm gonna look at it right now, but yeah, Blade fucking rules. All right, I really need to sit down and watch it. I haven't watched it in a while. I gotta sit down and watch Blade again. It's this movie.
It's also amazing that you've named all these perfect comic book castings and you still haven't named the best one.
Oh, by the way, David S. Goyer did not direct Blade. Stephen Norrington did.
Oh, okay.
I'll look at David S. Goyer's filmography though. Big writer guy. He wrote the Dark Knight.
Yeah, but
the Dark Knight, I should say.
Just look at some of the things on that list.
Oh, David S. Goyer directed Blade Trinity. Oh, yikes! That didn't go very well. Kickboxer 2. He wrote Kickboxer 2. Wow. The Crow City of Angels, that sequel? He's the king of writing bad sequels.
Yes, he is.
Sleepwalkers? Is that like based on the Stephen King book?
Maybe.
No, it's not. Stephen King directed the Sleepwalkers movie. And it's one of the worst movies you'll ever see in your life. What's your number 5, Mark?
It's Logan.
Oh, David S. Goyer is writing the Hellraiser movie that's coming out.
Yes, he is.
Which, now that I've seen The Night House, directed by David Bruckner, who is also directing Hellraiser, I'm very, very excited for what he can do with a movie that's honestly okay. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've seen one of his films, I'm uber excited for what he does with Hellraiser next year. Anyways.
Yeah, my number 5 is Logan. Logan is awesome. And I love Logan so much. And Stephen Merchant randomly popping up in Logan is like so funny to me because I love Stephen Merchant. Just everything about it. So it's the best take on Wolverine. It's the best take on Old Man Logan they physically could have done with all the Fox Marvel stuff, because the Old Man Logan comic is very different from the movie Logan. And it's just like, when I remember seeing Logan in theaters and just being blown away by how excellent of a movie it was. And another one that greatly benefits from comic book movies being able to be rated R.
Yes.
If Logan wasn't rated R, it wouldn't be nearly as good as it is. So it's number 5 for me.
Number 4 for me is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And we'll save that for when you talk about it, because I know you're the Spider-Man fanboy. So.
Yes. My number 4 is Batman 89.
Nice.
Yes, people, I enjoy rewatching Batman 89 more than I enjoy rewatching The Dark Knight. Shoot me.
See what you think about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, guess what? Jack Nicholson's my favorite actor, and I really like his take on the Joker.
He's
and
awesome. Joker.
And I think Michael Keaton is an excellent Batman. And I think Michael Gough is an excellent Alfred. I really like this movie. It's the only Tim Burton movie that I love.
What?
I'm not a Tim Burton guy.
You don't like Big Fish?
I like Big Fish. I said it's the only one I love.
You don't like
wow, you're seeing a lot of not great movies, aren't you?
I'm struggling. Never mind. Keep talking.
Yeah, it's almost like Tim Burton's filmography is not nearly as good as people think it is.
Well, yeah, because a lot of the movies that are really good that he's involved with, he fucking produced. Like, yeah. I can't even be like, oh, Nightmare Before Christmas. He didn't direct the movie.
I don't love Nightmare Before Christmas either.
You dumb man. Like Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
I like it. It's fine.
You don't love Beetlejuice? Are you kidding me?
Beetlejuice terrified me as a kid. I'm traumatized from Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies. You want to talk about a good Michael Keaton performance?
I'll give it that, but Beetlejuice like traumatized me as a kid, so I like grew up not liking it. But yeah, Batman 89 is my favorite Batman movie. In terms of like just pure entertainment, because I think it's hammy enough and pays enough homage to the like 60s Batman series while also being dark and doing a good job of being serious, where I think it's a really good combination of both. And quite frankly, what I think like the best idea for a Batman movie could be. It's like how I want James Bond to go back to the 60s, because I think it's cool that they do like the hyper real stuff now, but I also think it would be cool to have all these like 60s gadgets in it again, but give it a modern take. Like
I think there's a chance of that happening once we get a new Bond.
Yeah, I do too, and I hope it does, because I think that would be awesome.
I also think, and we'll save this talk for the redacted episode that we're looking at doing, but I think it's going to be difficult to do this kind of a take on Bond once Daniel Craig is done. Basically. Like, each actor as Bond has their own, like, I think each actor has their own distinct feel. about them. I
Sure.
don't think it would not be smart to continue down this route.
Oh, no. It wouldn't. The only one I think it could work with is Idris Elba. But at the same time, you would have to like change it a little bit to a more like grizzled Bond. And
Yeah, they won't do it because he's older and because people will flip out because he's black. Which
yeah. Yeah, that's all I have to say on Batman '89. It's just
number 3 for me is a movie we haven't mentioned yet, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies. By one of my favorite directors as well, and it's Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
It was very hard for me to not put that on the list, but I've only seen it once.
So, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a movie that kind of speaks to me. It's a movie I have a very strong emotional attachment with. Whether it's the comic books themselves, the video game that came out, that's also awesome. The movie itself, like as a nerdy guy who's kind of shy and also is into e-girls, like, like how could I not relate to Scott Pilgrim and in one way, shape, or form? And like, I don't know, man. Edgar Wright is just so good at directing movies, and Michael Cera. This is like the height of Michael Cera, like right around like 2009, and Michael Cera is perfect as Scott Pilgrim in the movie. And I didn't realize until recently that like Chris Evans was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Chris Evans is in 19 comic book movies.
Yeah, he is. I didn't realize until very recently that it was that, like, I'm sure I knew I saw that it was Chris Evans. I never made the connection that, like, damn, that's Chris Evans.
It's also Brie Larson.
Yeah, it's Brie Larson. Some of my favorite like my weird favorite actors are in the movie. Like, I love Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza's so funny.
I love Allison Pill mostly because I'm a huge mark for the Newsroom, and I know that's gonna get me hurt. But I love the Newsroom so much.
Out of all the Sorkin things,
Shush.
I'm such a huge Sorkin fan, and that's the one thing where I'm like, no.
See, I hard disagree. I love the Newsroom so much. Also, didn't make the connection now that Wallace Wells, played by Kieran Culkin, who we now love as Roman in Succession. So
yes.
So, which I still have to finish season 2 because season 3 is coming out soon. But
yeah, I got to rewatch it.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World, excellent, perfect. I love it. Like I said, Edgar Wright is one of my all-time favorite directors. This man is incapable of making a bad movie. He's got a new movie coming out soon that I've seen the trailer many times at this point. I still don't know what the fuck the movie's about.
Last Night in Soho, right?
Yeah. I saw the trailer again before Candyman this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I still can't quite figure out what the hell is happening.
I can't either.
Which is fine. You know, I'm going to go see the movie regardless, so it doesn't matter. But it looks cool.
It does. It looks awesome. I'm very excited for it. Yeah. My number 3, Spider-Man 2002.
God, I wonder what the theme for the rest of this list is going to be.
There's definitely not 5 Spider-Man movies in my top 10.
No, not at all.
The most perfect comic book casting of all time is J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
That's fair. That's very fair.
It's perfect. It's unbelievable. Yeah. The little details in this movie that it goes out of its way to show you. Like when Green Goblin like breaks into the Daily Bugle office, it's right after Jameson throws a cigar out of the window. Green Goblin takes the time to catch the cigar and throw it back in the window before crashing through the wall. I rewatch this movie every other month, probably.
I will say it's responsible for one of my favorite lines in comic book movie history. J.K. Simmons is. It's just the moment where he's just talking to Peter, and he tells him he's the whole, like, I need more pictures of Spider-Man. That whole scene. When he laughs and he goes, "You serious?" Like, that's one of my favorite lines in all of comic book movies, period. I love it so much.
It's just...
He goes, "Can I get my pay in advance?" You serious? I love it. love it so much.
Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin really hams it up, but he's so good. I love when he throws a pumpkin bomb that turns 6 people into skeletons, but Mary Jane, who's 3 feet away from the people that get turned into skeletons, does not get turned into a skeleton.
Logical. It makes sense.
Yeah. It's the best with great power comes great responsibility we've ever seen. Live action or otherwise.
You know what's funny? One of my least favorite things about The Amazing Spider-Man was when they tried to market it as like the untold story of Peter Parker, and then it's just like fucking Uncle Ben dies again. Like that's just what do you mean the untold story?
It's because they try to fucking get his parents involved, which the whole point of Peter Parker is no one gives a shit about his parents.
Yeah, that's the whole reason he's with Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
But I'm not going to go on another Amazing Spider-Man rant. I've gone on many in my day. But yeah, it's Spider-Man 2002. This movie just fucking rules. I know I said earlier, the dialogue's bad and Toby isn't a great Peter and he's 800 years old. I don't care. I don't care.
Number 2 for me is Logan. I think the movie's perfect. Like I think it's legitimately like A+++. If I did it on Mark's nitpick scale, I'd give it a 1,000 out of 100.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen it twice because I cried both times when I watched it.
Same.
Like I said, it's one of those moments that provides finality, which is such a rare thing in movies, which is why I truly hope we give strong consideration to whether or not we want to continue putting Wolverine in movies.
I don't think they should.
Because I'm going to have a hard time buying in to another person playing Wolverine after a movie like Logan happens.
Yeah.
Basically. It's a perfect superhero movie. It's a perfect, like, neo-Western. We talked about, like, it being, like, a quasi-Western. I mean, it's very clearly inspired by a lot of old Westerns. In the same way that The Wolverine, James Mangold's first Wolverine movie, is inspired by a lot of martial arts films. The movie takes place in Japan. It's pretty heavily inspired by martial arts films. And Logan is very, very heavily inspired by a lot of Westerns. Important to note also, Patrick Stewart being back in the movie. All of the stuff with X-24 as well. It's just... it's a perfect movie. I can't say it.
Yeah, they have that whole scene when they're in the hotel, and I believe it's The Searchers is playing on the television. And
I was going to mention it, but I couldn't remember what movie is playing on the TV.
I think it's The Searchers, but I could be wrong.
That movie in particular, I know it's a big thing about the movies. Like, that movie in particular inspired a great deal of the film itself. Let me see. Which Spider-Man movie is number 2 for you?
It's Far From Home. Far From Home is in the conversation for my favorite movie of all time. It's excellent.
It's the movie Shane from 1950.
Shane, yes. Okay. It draws a lot of inspiration from Shane as well. Mysterio's an incredible villain. We get a throwback clip with Peter Billingsley to Iron Man with the box of scraps thing, which I mentioned earlier. We get J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson at the end as an Alex Jones style, like,
podcast host, right?
Not even podcast host, but like internet news YouTuber, like, bullshit thing.
Which is kind of what they did in the Spider-Man video game also.
Yes.
You get audio logs of J. Jonah Jameson's podcast, and he's gone completely nutso. And
which is very funny as well. It's just the cliffhanger at the end, I think, is excellent. Not just because of J.K. Simmons, but it set up the third one so well. and it's part of why I'm so goddamn excited for No Way Home. Like I said, I considered putting No Way Home number 3 on this list.
It's not even out yet.
Exactly. Just because I know I'm going to love it so much, and I know it's going to be in the top 10 of this list at some point. So I will have 6 Spider-Man movies in the top 10 of this list at some point. I love Far From Home so much, and as soon as I saw it, like coming out of the theater, I said that might be my new favorite movie. The opening with Whitney Houston playing, and they're just showing a really bad PowerPoint presentation of all the people who died in the Endgame. And it cuts to like the school, like some of the pictures are like pixelated, and then it cuts to Betty Brant on the school news. It's so funny, dude. It's just another great teen comedy that just happens to be about a guy that can stick to walls.
Yeah. So my list, I talked about it a bunch, focuses a lot on a directorial style when it comes to film. It's kind of what I quote unquote have studied in the past. And to me, my number one movie is a movie that defined new grounds that comic book movies could take. It's The Dark Knight. And Batman Begins is a really good, like, gritty superhero origin story.
Mm-hmm.
What Christopher Nolan did with The Dark Knight was show that comic book movies can be more than comic book movies. I can't think of an example before The Dark Knight of a comic book movie that is so good outside of that stigma as The Dark Knight is, for me, a crime drama that just happens to have a guy in a cape in in the movie. Before or since, there hasn't been a comic book movie, in my opinion, that has transcended the comic book stigma to the level that The Dark Knight has. It's pretty simple, honestly. Christopher Nolan is one of the best directors working today. Even though his movies have become increasingly inaudible for some strange reason.
I can't wait to watch Tenet with the captions on.
I almost bought it a couple of times. I saw it at Barnes & Noble for like $12. I was going to buy it. And
yeah, I'm so excited to watch it with the captions on so I can understand half of the dialogue.
And the most annoying part, it started in The Dark Knight Rises with the whole Bane thing. But
yeah.
the most annoying part about it is it's a conscious choice. He does it on purpose, and I don't understand. I don't understand it.
I don't either.
But no, The Dark Knight is, again, it's a perfect movie. Christian Bale was perfect as Batman in the movie. Heath Ledger, almost immediately in winning the Oscar for that role, has been canonized as one of the greatest performances in film history. A performance that indirectly killed him. There's nothing. Again, it's one of those movies where there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said in the 13 years the movie's been out. Let's talk about Into the Spider-Verse, Mark.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse is number 1. Big shock. I have it rated 100 out of 100. Of course, it was fucking number 1 on this list. Into the Spider-Verse is a perfect comic book movie in the sense that not only does every character have excellent motivation, including the villains, it manages to tell a great story about it. This is gonna, like, a lot of people are gonna consider this to be a hot take. It's like when Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture, I was livid that Into the Spider-Verse was not nominated in its place. I was like, Black Panther wasn't even the best movie about a black superhero coming out in 2018. Like, just plain and simple, in my opinion. It was the story they're able to tell with Miles Morales, a character that, sure, bears some similarities to Peter Parker in the sense that he's close with his uncle and his uncle dies and he's Spider-Man. Like, there really isn't, like, or he's from Brooklyn, not Queens, or Like they're both high school students. They come from totally different backgrounds. They have totally different upbringings, and their uncle's deaths mean something completely different. They're both the loss of a role model, but in Miles, it's the loss of maybe who shouldn't have been his role model. He is, in fact, a criminal and someone who's doing it just to try to make a little extra money, and he doesn't really want to hurt Miles in their interaction. He doesn't want to hurt him at all. But same time, it's like, is this a guy that he really should be looking up to? And then he learns to look up to his father more. And I think it's just an expertly told story in a very funny movie with the single best animation of all time. There has never been a single better looking animated movie than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. All the little details that they put in, the fact that it's like reading an old comic book in the sense that it's, I don't know if cell shaded is the right word to use, but like you see like the little dots and stuff on screen like you would in a 60s comic book. And when they're weaving the I can't think of what Olivia Octavius's company is called, but they steal the computer and they get away, and that's when Spider-Gwen comes in. He like takes a bagel from the dining room, and then as they're running away, he throws the bagel at somebody, and when it hits the person in the head, the word bagel pops on screen for like a half a second. It's just everything about the movie is perfect. It should have been nominated for Best Picture. I would have been fine if it won Best Picture in 2018. I think it's a phenomenal movie. And yeah, it was going to be number one on this list.
Yeah, I wrote a good portion of my capstone paper for political science about the character of Miles Morales.
Mm-hmm.
Largely regarding, my paper was about the history of race in comic books, generally speaking, and the evolution of the concept of race as told through different eras and different characters. My section on Miles Morales dealt with the fact that I think what makes a good story about a different version of a character, and this can be applied to John Stewart as the Green Lantern, who some would argue is a better Green Lantern than Hal Jordan, or or the iterations of the Black Superman, or even an otherworld story regarding Superman, for example, landing in the Ukraine and not Kansas.
Superman Red Son.
Red Son. There's a fucking Batman story where Batman is a Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Batman story where it takes place in 1600s London, Gotham by Gaslight, which is also. So I wrote most of my paper about what makes a good black version of a superhero, loosely. And I think what makes Miles Morales work is that natively they're going to have different traits to them. Natively they're going to have different stories to tell. I use the example of there was a Miles Morales story called Straight Outta Brooklyn that came out in 2019, 2020. I can't remember. It's recent. Centered around a villain called the Snatcher. He's a villain that abducts children and basically deports them. It's an entire story about border relations and family separation and blah blah blah. That's a story that can only be told through the lens of an Afro-Latino character, like Miles Morales. Peter Parker doing it would be kind of weird, to be honest with you. So it works in that sense, but also what makes Miles Morales work as a character and what works in Into the Spider-Verse, this is what I'm trying to connect it to, is that also he exists just as a Spider-Man. So I think what some people get a little stuck on when it comes to telling stories about multiracial characters is not everything has to be about the struggles of a black teen. Like, sure, those are stories you can only tell through the lens of Miles Morales, but someone in my class said it perfectly when he said, he was like, sometimes I just want to see Miles Morales fight an alien.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes I just want to see Miles Morales do some Spider-Man shit. And I think that's what works beautifully about the character, and it's excellent. And Into the Spider-Verse, I already kind of mentioned where I have it on my list, but yeah, that was the
The
gist of the 20 some odd pages that I wrote about it.
the entire premise of Spider-Man, as was originally created by Stan Lee, was anyone can be Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And sure, did they pick a white guy from Queens as the first one? Yeah, they did. It doesn't matter. Spider-Man can be black, white, Asian, a woman, whatever.
Also, what was different about Spider-Man as well compared to the average superhero is like he was a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Like Joey's like Peter Parker's a loser.
Yeah. They've sort of gone away from that in comic writing now, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it also happens as the character ages. You know, he gets a wife and gets married and all that shit. But yeah, Spider-Man was just a really nerdy kid that sure had friends, but also had bullies and like Flash Thompson. Like he was just a normal nerdy kid that just so happened to get bit by a spider. And it could have happened to me, it could have happened to you, it could have happened to Peter Parker. It could have happened to Miles Morales. And so that's the whole conceit of the character, and that's always been the whole conceit of the character. And that's why I think Miles Morales is such an excellent character, because it's like, yeah, what if it was not Peter Parker? And I've heard someone like try to make the argument that Spider-Verse is like bad because of like a white savior thing.
That's wholly incorrect, but
Miles is the savior of the movie.
yeah.
Miles is the one that comes in and like saves the day.
Also, like,
And
I don't know, I feel like all of the different spider things have equal part in the movie. Like, is it a pig savior complex?
yeah, like
Like,
there's literally a Spider-Man who's a Looney Tunes style pig who has a hammer that fits in his pocket and he bonks Scorpion on the head with it.
who played Spider Pig? Who was that?
That was John Mulaney.
John Mulaney, right? Okay.
Which also, if you've never seen, go on YouTube and look up the outtakes, because he didn't know the movie was PG at first, and it's very funny. Because he's like,
is it one of those sets of outtakes where did they animate the outtakes as well?
No.
Oh.
Sadly not. But he's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it's very funny. I think it was a clip from Conan or something. But yeah, I'm glad we got to have a nice little discussion on Spider-Verse there, because usually when I talk about it with people, they're like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, no, but I want to talk about why. I want to talk about the character concept of Spider-Man as a whole.
We've done that with a couple movies on this list. Yeah, movie good. All right. We could have done that for Spider-Verse as well. People like it, therefore, like that's the kind of thing you can always say for a movie that's like universally enjoyed. Like, yeah, it good, cool, movie, solid. Next, please.
So yeah, that does it for our lists. It only took 6 hours, but you know, it's the first official C-Listers episode back. I wanted to give the people something special. I wanted to give the people something that would make them stand outside of my house and with pitchforks and torches. And
we had Batman v Superman as like number 12 or something like that.
I think it was number 15. I had Spider-Man 3 and Iron Man 3 on the list. I had Batman 89 ahead of The Dark Knight. I had Spider-Man 2002 ahead of The Dark Knight. Like, it's the people.
I'll be honest, I didn't have very many hot takes on my list.
No, and that's why I said fuck it to my rating list, because it was Into the Spider-Verse, Dark Knight, Logan, or Far From Home, Logan. It was like some of it was similar, some of it was very different. Like that one had Scott Pilgrim at like number 11, but I've only seen it once, so I didn't want to put it on this one because I don't know how much I'll enjoy it if, like, on a rewatch. Like, yeah, so I think that's going to do it for us. For Zach Nunez, if you want to plug your Twitter and Hot Stove once again.
Yeah, I'll plug the Hot Stove stuff. Follow us on Twitter at Hot Stove Pod. It's at Hot Stove Pod on Twitter. Also, here on the YouTube video that you may or may not be watching, given what channel it's on. Who knows, right? Subscribe to not only this channel, but the C-Listers channel. Hit those notification bells, like the videos. Liking the videos does a lot, actually.
Yes, it does.
It pushes it to an algorithm because YouTube is fucked up. So basically, you hitting the like button is like, hey, people are watching the thing. So maybe other people watch it. So it'd be greatly appreciated. Leave a comment if you feel like hating. That's fine. You're allowed to be a hater.
Yep.
Cool.
And on this side, like you said, make sure you do subscribe to Hot Stove. Follow Hot Stove Pod on Twitter. Like, comment, all that good stuff. And do the same for the C-Listers. You can follow me on Twitter at MPRowlands99. That's MPROWLANDS 99. Make sure to like the video. Like you said, it does a lot. Subscribe. Leave a comment calling me the biggest fucking moron you've ever seen in your entire life. Hit that notification bell because more of these will be coming. I promise you that. We will have more C-Listers episodes. And we will see you next time. Peace.